Hello, Topical, and welcome back to your favorite NBA coverage with your favorite podcast and your favorite podcasting host, Ryan Moret. And today we're going to be talking about the first four games of the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals of the NBA and get into a bit of a discussion on revenue sharing. I think that's going to be fascinating. Maybe talk about the NBA lottery a little bit. Who knows, maybe get into expansion teams. It seems like that's always a favorite topic of ours. And if we have extra time, maybe even preview NBA free agency a little bit. So I guess we should get right back into things, Aradh.
For sure, there's a lot to discuss about these first four games of each series. So, which series would you prefer to start with?
Ooh, I have a decision. Let's see. I guess let's do the conference finals. It seems like we have a bit of a habit of finishing with LeBron.
For sure. So, first and foremost about the Western Conference Finals. After Game 1, I was pretty disheartened because I thought that I really felt like going into it, given the history and perception and reputation of James Harden, Chris Paul, Mike D'Antoni, to me it really didn't seem like. Basically going into it, I felt as though if Game 1 ends up, I felt sort of like Game 1 was as must win a Game 1 could be, given the circumstance of Houston, because all season long, Houston has been sort of. They've made it pretty public and pretty well known that their goal has been to dethrone the Warriors. As in December, Daryl Morey said that they're obsessed with them. Clint Capella said that they're the better team, and obviously they worked so hard to get home court advantage because they didn't rest their stars down the stretch. They lost they lost the number one seed for a little while when James Harden was injured, and then they made it a point to when he got back to really fight for it. I remember watching them play in some relatively meaningless games that they could easily win. Either they probably played the Suns a couple times where they played both James Harden and Chris Paul, where obviously you don't need to do that to beat the Suns.
Yeah.
So the fact that they had worked so hard to get the number one seed and then they just walk into Game 1 and then Golden State blows their doors off. That was pretty upsetting to me because I felt like Houston, psychologically probably just wouldn't feel into the rest of the series because they probably feel like, well, damn, like we worked so hard to get this home court advantage and we've already lost it.
119 to 106 ultimately.
Yeah, they lost by 13 points, but I mean that actually made it look a lot better than it actually was. There were some the final score only being 13 doesn't really account for the fact that the Warriors obviously had their their signature third quarter onslaught, and it didn't help at all that PJ Tucker only had 1 point and that James Harden himself had 41, but none of the Rockets other than him and Chris Paul played well. Chris Paul actually surprisingly draws the series. I'm not sure if you've noticed.
Yeah.
His numbers have been really low. He's obviously had some good scoring nights, but he's I guess struggled to make plays for other people. So
especially off the dribble.
Yeah, it's been weird how they've been defending him. And then obviously there was so Game 1 was disheartening. So I kind of thought, okay, whatever. Warriors again, Warriors in 5 probably. Because it just didn't seem like they were in a position where they'd get rattled, because it seemed like it would be the typical thing where, similar to how when LeBron James wasn't the number one seed when he was in Miami, he would go on the road, I'm not sure how he would go on the road and then he'd win one and then he'd lose and then he'd get the 3 straight games at home because the format was different then, and then he'd just win and then it would be like a 5-game win or whatever. So it seemed like it was going to be similar to that, and how the Warriors win Game 1, then drop Game 2, then win both at home, and then probably win in 5, either on the road or an easy. I guess it wouldn't be an easy 6, but a comfortable 6 games back in Oracle. So I really didn't think that it had the making of a competitive series after Game 1, which was pretty upsetting. But then Game 2 happened, obviously, and I was very happy because not only did the Rockets win by 22 points, but the thing that was impressive to me about it was the role players really showed that they bounced back from their poor shooting and poor performance in Game 1, to where it kind of made me think like, the role players of this team aren't like Cleveland's, where the role players in Cleveland will have a bad game and then they'll just carry it over and then they just won't snap out of it, and they'll just have, like, if they have one bad game, that usually signals a long stretch of them having bad games.
Yeah. Because
rarely does Cleveland have a bounce back sort of night from everyone. it's typically only LeBron James who has the big comeback nights, and then he kind of leads the way and he has to carry them through it. But it was really nice to see in game 2 how PJ Tucker stepped up, how Trevor Ariza stepped up, even
Eric Gordon.
Eric Gordon as well. He had 27 points in game 2. He did a fantastic job. And the fact that Harden was 3 of 15 from 3, the fact that he shot, I think, 37%, and then Chris Paul's he had 16 points and 6 assists, which is, seems fine for your second option, but then he shot 6 of 14, 1 of 5 from 3. And then how PJ Tucker had 22 points, 8 of 9, 5 of 6 from 3, and then Trevor Ariza had 19, and then obviously Eric Gordon, 8 of 15, 6 of 9 from 3. And it was also nice to see how they were able to make up for the lack of impact by Clint Capella, as he only had 5 points in game 2. So their win by 22 was pretty impressive to me. The fact that the Warriors got blown out, even though Kevin Durant had 38 points, was a cool thing for me to see, because it seems like, given the luxury that the Warriors have having so many stars, it's like if one of them goes off, it's a surefire thing that everyone else is just going to play average or well enough to the point where they can win. So the fact that Durant had a big night and they still lost big was really cool to me. So I was high on the Rockets after game 2, and then game 3 happened where they lost by 41 points, and I was back on Warriors in 5.
Yeah.
Sure. So I mean, it was really back and forth because, and an interesting thing to note. So in game 2. When Kevin Durant had 38 points and Steph Curry had 18 points, they lost by 22. But in game 3, when Steph Curry had 35 and Kevin Durant had 25, the Warriors won by 41.
Yeah.
And I took a look at this, and Steph Curry, his offensive rating per 36 minutes is like 40.5.
Whoa.
And there's another caveat to that. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's like it's under some circumstance or something. It's like I think it's maybe I don't know. There's some other circumstance to it.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I think it's when they have their Hampton 5 on the floor or something, or maybe it's in the third quarter. I don't know. So it's some weird caveat like that. So per 36 minutes, he's 40.5, whereas Kevin Durant is only 28.2. Which shows we've been harping on this for a couple weeks that Steph Curry is by far the more valuable Warrior, because when he plays well, they are special. They're a magical team. Like they're insane on offense. Like in terms of how open the court is, how easy it is for everyone to make shots, how spread they have, how far they spread the other team's defense. So to me, that really showed, because Steph Curry went off. They had 35, and they blew the doors off of Houston. Obviously, Houston didn't have a great shooting night,
yeah. But I mean, that's an understatement. Like, it was literally the worst game in terms of efficiency for Houston all season.
Yeah, they shot below 40% from the field. Nobody made more than 7 shots. The best shooter on the floor was Clint Capella, 6 of 9, but obviously his points are not going to be as impactful as Harden and Chris Paul's. Harden and Paul only combined for 33. They were outscored. Steph Curry outscored the two of them by himself. Whereas the Warriors played a really good all-around game. They got a lot of good bench contributions. So after game 3, I was kind of like, okay, the Warriors lost one game. They took their punch in the mouth, and now they're just going to take the series. And then game 4 happened, and then it really looked like that was exactly what I thought was going to happen, because the Warriors opened the game up with a 12-0 lead. And I was like, yep, Houston, psychologically, they're done. They just realize that they don't believe that they can beat them. They're not adjusting enough. They just know that they don't have enough talent. They just don't think that they're good enough. They're just going to mail it in and then hope to get LeBron in free agency and try again next year. And I was wrong. And I was very glad that I was wrong.
Yeah.
They fought back. They took a timeout. There was a really strange moment. I'm not sure if you watched it, but there was a moment where James Harden had a wide open 3, and he was completely wide open, and he was just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and nobody came, and he didn't shoot it. And rather than shooting it, he passed it to the other side where there was a defender, and that looked really strange. It looked kind of like disengaged and kind of off, kind of like Game 6 last year when they lost to the Spurs.
Yeah.
So that was really alarming to me, because I was like, okay, if James Harden's not engaged, there's just no way that this is going to happen. Like, they're going to get the doors blown off again. And then they took the timeout after 12 minutes or after the 12-0 run, and then they started fighting back, and it was excellent to watch. It was this was probably my favorite game that I've watched all year because Houston really. It's weird to say this about a Mike D'Antoni offense or a Mike D'Antoni team in general. To me, they really won this game with defense because PJ Tucker and Trevor Ariza, even though together they only combined for 13 points, Trevor Ariza had 9, PJ Tucker had 4. How effortfully they were playing defensively was so brightening to me because I feel like it was contagious to the point where like they were switching so the next guy wanted to switch, they were setting screens so the next guy wanted to set screens. They were jumping up for the rebounds. PJ Tucker 6'5", 6'6", however tall he is, had 16 rebounds. Obviously very impressive. He didn't make a single field goal. He just had 4 free throws, but regardless, his impact on the game was still extremely valuable. He had 4 offensive rebounds, and even though he didn't score a single point, he was still a +7 while he was on the court. He had 2 steals and a block as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like almost having like a Draymond Green game there, where
exactly. He was having a similar impact to how Draymond Green does when he doesn't, when he's not scoring, and it was cool because he was matching all the intensity. When Draymond was trying to get going. And then obviously this game also had that cool mix of they had some cool moments where obviously James Harden threw down an amazing dunk on Draymond Green. That was fantastic because usually you don't see Draymond get dunked on. He's one of those players who usually, I guess, prevents people from scoring at the rim. And the fact that James Harden just said no and just brought it up with his hand and one-handed flush right over him and a foul, that was fantastic. I love that because also it was kind of cool to see James Harden go for an athletic move because he really usually doesn't. He really rarely showcases his athleticism. He's more about shiftiness and ball handling and slithering and shimming and all that stuff. So it was cool to see him just go for a power move for once. It was cool to see that he's able to do that because the infamous Skip Bayless even tweeted that he didn't know James Harden was capable of doing such a thing, which, to be fair, I really didn't either. And then what was interesting, or probably even more about this game that something that's never happened before as long as I've been watching the Warriors. And the Warriors have been the best team in basketball ever since I started watching basketball. So I've watched a lot of them. And I was doing some research on this. And as you know, since you watched the game, the Warriors obviously had a magnificent third quarter. Steph Curry had 17 points, 5 of 7 from the 3. And so he had 5 threes and a layup. And he scored 11 points in 90 seconds. He played phenomenally in that third quarter.
Yeah, and the Warriors outscored the Rockets 34-17 in that quarter, so it really brought them back in the game.
They doubled their production, and then after that, I was like, okay, again, it's done because the Warriors are up 10. They have 4 All-Stars. There's no way they're going to blow a 10-point lead heading into the fourth quarter because Houston's they're not going to have enough to withstand this because James Harden's gotten completely cold in the second half. And Chris Paul is not going to be able to shoulder all of it by himself. And then because also, and this is the statistic that I found on this as I was doing some research, listening to some radio, when the Warriors have a 15-point lead in the third quarter, so since they're such a good third quarter team, they've accumulated 51 times they have led by 15 or more in the fourth quarter. 51 times. In those games, they were 51-0. They had never lost a game if they had a 15-point lead at any point in the third quarter.
Ooh.
And last night was their first loss, and they went now they're 51-1. This also broke the Warriors' streak of 16 consecutive home wins in the playoffs, so that was cool. So it was a cool game for the Rockets because they did so many things that no team has been capable of doing. So that kind of covers how I feel about the third quarter. But then what I want to talk about the most about the game 4 is the fourth quarter because Chris Paul was fantastic. Nobody's giving him enough credit.
No, he totally turned it around. He was struggling in game 2.
Yeah, he just decided I'm going to shoot this. And it was crazy because he's 6 feet tall and he's shooting fading threes over Klay Thompson that are going in. They just look like the worst shot that you can possibly try and take. It just looks forced completely. And he's making them, and then he gets into the lane, and he makes a couple mid-range jumpers, and he makes a fading floater, and he kind of takes over 5 of 9 from 3 for the game. I'm not sure how many came in the fourth, but then the Rockets, even though they were down 12 points with 9 minutes to go, And then they didn't get rattled and they didn't give up. They just kept going and they kept playing defense. And then obviously there was the terrific sequence in the game where James Harden he stole the ball from off a pass from Nick Young, and then he stripped Kevin Durant. And for the first fast break, he made a beautiful bounce pass to Chris Paul for the layup, and then the second one he did a dunk. So the fact that James Harden is capable of playing some actually relevant and good, strong defense was really cool to see, because obviously now we know that he can do that, so it's not going to be an excuse for him as to, he's just not that good of a defender, because we know that when he's engaged and when he tries, he can be a good defender.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then he also, despite having only 6 points in the second half, I think that he still, even though he didn't really make plays for other people, he didn't really do anything wrong. I feel like it's not like he didn't force shots. He wasn't turning the ball over a crazy amount. Like, it's not like he was, even though he only had 6, he had his quiet 6 points in such a way that it didn't negatively impact the team. He kind of just stepped back and let Chris Paul take over, which was a wise thing to do, because Chris Paul was obviously, playing better in the second half. So then the fourth quarter happened. The Rockets, they turn that 12-point deficit into a 3-point game, and then after that, Chris Paul hits a 3, and then it's a 1-point game, and then they get it again off a steal, and then it's a 1-point game, and then then they take the lead, and then once they take the lead, I'm like, okay, this is insane. I've literally never seen this happen, where the Warriors have a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter and then they blow it, because obviously when you associate the Warriors blowing leads, you just think 3-1 2016. You don't think 12 points in the fourth quarter, because they're excellent front runners in such a way that they just don't lose games when they have a lead, because all they have to do is just keep playing their stars, and then they're just going to go in cruise control and just score a decent amount of points and just do what they do, and then they're going to win, because there's no answer. But the defense was fantastic, and just some stats on how poorly the Warriors played in the fourth quarter. As a team, they only had 12 points. Steph Curry was 1 of 8, despite going 5 of 7 in the third. Or no, he was 6 of 8 in the third. He was 1 of 8 in the fourth. He only had 3 points in the fourth quarter. He missed the wide open shot to send the game to overtime, obviously.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant did not make a single shot from after he didn't make a single shot after 7 minutes and 43 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and he did not take a single shot after 4 minutes in the fourth quarter. Obviously, he did that. He made that stupid decision, which LeBron James would get killed for.
Yeah.
Passing up the mid-range jumper, going down with 10 seconds left. He gave it up to Klay Thompson, who was basically being trapped. So that just goes to show that Kevin Durant's not as good a decision maker as LeBron. I just have to add that in there because.
Oh yeah, of course, because nobody's doing that.
I know that people recently, because of how well Kevin Durant's been playing in the playoffs, have been, people are back on that horse of, Kevin Durant's better than LeBron and all that. But clearly we saw yesterday that he does not handle pressure nearly as well as LeBron James does and has in these playoffs. He gave the ball up to Klay Thompson, who was trapped. He's 7 feet tall, he's being guarded by someone 6'5". Why doesn't he just pull up and shoot the mid-range jumper? That's exactly what people say about LeBron. LeBron James was murdered last year, obliterated on every outlet. Everyone was criticizing him because he gave up a layup to give Kyle Korver a wide open 3, and that was the most efficient shot that was on the floor at the time. Kyle Korver left corner 3 wide open. So LeBron was killed for that, but Kevin Durant's not killed for giving the ball up to a Klay Thompson who has 2 defenders on him and is obviously going to have to shoot a stupid fadeaway that he did, that he airballed, that Chris Paul grabbed, and then Sean Livingston fouled him. But that was really stupid because the Rockets should have just walked off. Like, there's the fact that Chris Paul missed the free throw, like that. I mean, the fact that the Warriors had a chance to tie that game is actually, I don't know, that just makes me really upset because, I mean, I'm sure, obviously it's not rigged or anything, but it just, the way that it was done kind of makes it seem like it was a little fishy for them to give the Warriors another chance. Like,
yeah.
Especially because you don't call that foul at the end of the game. Like, nobody ever called loose ball fouls.
Especially in the playoffs.
Exactly. And Sean Livingston didn't even use his arms. Like, he just had his body on Chris Paul's, and they're going to call for free throws. Like, obviously knowing that if Chris Paul misses one, the Warriors will have a chance to tie with a 3, which obviously they can do because they have 3 amazing 3-point shooters on the floor. Luckily, Steph Curry missed, because if he had in this game and went to overtime, that would have been obviously horrible.
Especially if the Rockets lost, yeah.
Yeah, if they had lost in overtime, that would have been horrendous. the league would probably get killed as well, because the Rockets, they really gutted it out. They won with defense. They deserved everything in that win. Chris Paul was really impressive. I think more people need to, give him credit, because this team is much more than James Harden. Even though James Harden did play well he played very well in the first half. He didn't play too well in the second half, but this was a slugfest. It was cool because there was nothing. It was not like it wasn't like previous games. Like, it was just different how it was done defensively, and it was cool that the Warriors lost, even though they had a better field goal percentage, better 3-point percentage. They had more rebounds. They had more assists. They had less turnovers. Overall, they played a better game than the Rockets did in terms of their efficiency, and they had more offensive rebounds. They just played a better game. It seemed like all around. It just came down to the critical moments where Steph Curry couldn't score, Kevin Durant couldn't score. Kevin Durant is not getting killed on social media, even though I feel like he should be, because if he's the best player in the world, then how is he going to have 37% shooting night and not take a shot with 7 minutes and 43 seconds left, or not make a shot with 7 minutes and 43 seconds left in the fourth quarter? It just goes to show that the Rockets, in my opinion, are now in a really good place, because now it's just a best of three, and two of the games are all they have to do is win 2 of 3. 2 of the games are in Houston, and now on this season, including regular season and playoffs, they've now won 4 out of 7 against Golden State, and I feel like their confidence is solidified, because they've bounced back from a 13-point loss where the role players played bad, and they've bounced back from a 41-point loss where everybody played bad, and they've been hardened. And then in Game 4, they won in defensive, gritty fashion, where they just out-hustled, out-gritted, they out-wanted. It's a weird word to say, but they just wanted it more than Golden State did, and it ended up coming to them, and it was really good to see that. And just for anyone who's blaming Steve Kerr for not calling a timeout, you need to stop blaming Steve Kerr and blame your players, because Kevin Durant, if he's the best player in the world, and Steph Curry is the second, third, fourth, whatever best player in the world you want him to be, he should make that wide open 3 if he's the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. And if Steve Kerr calls a timeout, in my opinion, that's actually a mistake, because if he calls a timeout, Houston has a chance to get their defense set. So obviously, why would you'd obviously, if you have Kevin Durant, who's an elite scorer, Klay Thompson, who's an amazing shooter, and Steph Curry, who's also an elite scorer and shooter, obviously you'd rather attack them when their defense is not set than when it is set, given that Houston was the 6th best defense in the league this year. So, so far the Western Conference Finals have been really up and down. It was really good to see a close game yesterday that was won defensively. How the style that you and I prefer. And it was good that this wasn't just some crazy shootout. We have yet to see just a crazy shootout, because it's either been one team is shooting crazy and the other team is not shooting well. But I'm sure we'll probably see that in either game 5, 6, or 7. Hopefully it goes 7 and Houston can win in 7, because I doubt Houston will be able to win in 6. I feel like Houston's best bet is, winning tomorrow and then winning in Houston in game 7. So far the Western Conference Finals have been interesting. They've been a little bit of everything, which is always cool. But it's probably, yesterday was definitely the best game I've watched in a long time. And I feel like when the series is over, it's going to end up being probably one of the best series I've ever watched, aside from the 2016 NBA Finals and the 2016 Western Conference Finals. And just one last note before I hand it over to you. This is the first time that this is the first time the Warriors will play a Game 6 with Kevin Durant. So this is a new challenge for them as well. They've never been challenged this much. It's good to see that. This is actually going to be a challenge for them. And I saw something Steph Curry said after the game. He said, he said something like, now we understand that this is a true playoff atmosphere, which, to me kind of tells me that they haven't really taken anything seriously ever since they got Kevin Durant, because they know they're better than everyone. So it's cool to see the Rockets challenging them. And, this is obviously the first difficult series that they'll have had to play since the 2016 Finals loss. And then, the 2016 Western Conference Finals before that. So, the toughest series this team has had to play in 2 years, and I'm really excited for the rest of it.
Wow, that was a joy to listen to. Wow. Okay, so I would definitely agree. I was so happy with last night's game, because I was starting to think that it was either going to be a blowout or just not a fun series to watch. Because when you have a bunch of just back and forth blowouts for each team, it's like, okay, first of all, I don't know how to analyze this, and then second of all, now I do after game 4, but second of all, it's just not fun to watch. Okay, one team goes out there and kills that other team. You're like, ooh, maybe they're going to do well. And then, the other team goes out and kills them. It's like, okay, well, like, can you do it at the same time or something? So like,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's kind of what we got in Game 4. Obviously, not in a shootout, but in a gritty, grinded out game, which was really nice because we never get that. So, just to go into some of my analysis. So, in Game 1, I thought that Houston was really going to, I thought this was going to come up more in the rest of the series. They were struggling badly in their isolation game. So, it seems like they just completely, they put all of their eggs into the isolation basket and they said, we're going to try and ISO Steph Curry, and we're just going to try and run the ball down his throat for James Harden and Chris Paul and try and score that way. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to get blown out. And, well, they didn't get blown out. But as you said, 13 points isn't really representative of the game. So the 45 isolation plays they ran in Game 1 was actually the most they had run in any game in the past 5 years. So that's huge because obviously.
5 years. And they ran 22 in the regular season, so they were almost double what they did in the regular season.
Yeah,
Double.
And it was almost just like they were I forget what it's called. They were a caricature of themselves, and
and also just a quick note: James Harden himself in Game 1 dribbled 550 times. The Warriors, Clay, Durant, and Steph only dribbled 549 times. So he himself dribbled the ball more times than the three of them did combined, which is staggering.
Yeah, I always love those second spectrum stats. That's been a great thing that's come out in the past couple of years. But yeah, like it just not a good performance from the Rockets, and like they've kind of stuck around with their isolation game because obviously they weren't going to struggle that much every time. Shooting regresses eventually to your regular season mean, but 45 is absolutely ridiculous. Each team gets like about 100 possessions a game. That's why we do per 100 possession numbers. So yeah, like that's almost half of the plays that you run. So that's pretty crazy. And then the Rockets, they had, in Game 3, they had their least efficient game of the season, as I said. But they also had the worst point differential of any 65-win team in a playoff game. So, like, in any playoff game ever. So, that's absolutely insane. So, obviously, that's just the fact that the Rockets, they rely on their free-point shot, they rely on their points in the paint, and if that's not going for them, they're going to lose big time. So, that's what we saw in Game 3 with that 41-point blowout. So, that sucks, obviously. And yeah, that Warriors record for 16 straight games at home in a play and winning that many games in a row at home in the playoffs, that was huge. And I didn't know how they were going to lose. Honestly, going into Game 4, I was like thinking of Game 7 against the Cavs, and I was like, it's really been that long, and like how are these Warriors going to lose this game? And like amazingly, they did because the Rockets just were pretty much perfect in the entire game. But yeah, like it was ridiculous. And as I mentioned earlier, Chris Paul was really having some problems off the dribble. He wasn't passing out enough. He was making bad passes. He was taking fadeaway shots where like he wasn't able to make them, unlike Game 4, obviously. So it was all falling on James Harden's shoulders. And like really all they were doing with James Harden was just sending him against Steph Curry and hoping that it would work for them. But I actually found that so the Rockets against when James Harden was attacking Steph Curry and like 102 points per 100 possessions against him. So obviously their regular season average for their offense was like 108. So they were actually below their regular season average attacking Steph Curry. So obviously that wasn't a great strategy. So it's good that they kind of got away from that in Game 4. So yeah, like it's just been a really fun series, and I think Game 4 was what we were hoping the entire series would be like. So hopefully Game 5, 6, and 7 can keep that up. But yeah, like seriously, going into Game 4, I did not know what to expect. I was obviously hopeful that the Rockets were going to make it a competitive series because like we want a Game 7 out of this, and like we want to feel like the Warriors are really challenged in the playoffs because this is like the first team since the Thunder, and like even more so than the Thunder, like a really competitive team that is in a lot of ways better than the Warriors and like had a better regular season and had better advanced metrics and has younger players. Well, not really younger. The Warriors are incredibly young, but just they're a really good team, and like you can have an expectation and be like, okay, if they make it to the finals, well, I feel good about that. Or if they beat the Warriors, you can say, okay, well, the Warriors did about all they could, and this team was just better, and who knows, maybe even handing over the torch with the Warriors being in the past free like that. Game 4 was what we wanted. I'll say that, and like it wasn't one of those games where like it was super close or like it was tied going in the entire game going into the fourth quarter or whatever. This was a back and forth game, and like it was like, oh, the Warriors went on a run, and then oh, the Rockets responded, and oh, there go the Warriors again, and like it came in runs. In a lot of ways, I think that's more fun of a game than like a game that's like within 2 or 3 points the entire game because Like at that point, it gets kind of old. Like you're like, oh, game's still tied, and like it loses its stakes. But when it's constantly swinging back and forth, you feel the changes in momentum, and it gets you really involved in the game. And
I would agree.
and one of the big things I don't think we got mentioned for Game 4 was Trevor Ariza had an amazing defensive game. Like on the perimeter, he was locking down anyone that was trying to put up a free. It was awesome to see. Klay Thompson was held to 10 points. That was great. And then something that I've been noticing on the Warriors is they actually, aside from Draymond Green, they really haven't been getting very many assists in this series. And obviously, they've never been a crazy high assist team just because they're really big on those hockey assists. But yeah, even still, Steph Curry's been below his regular season average for this series. I think I checked, and he was averaging like 3 assists a game, which isn't good. Kevin Durant, obviously, he's Mr. ISO, so he's never going to be getting the assists.
But he only had one. He had one assist through the first 2 games.
Yeah, so like I think that's a big problem because the Warriors pride themselves on their ball movement, obviously, and if like they're just going to have their turnovers and not get assists in return, like obviously Draymond, but you can't just have your center being the only person getting assists. Then like that's going to create a problem, and like they can't beat the Rockets at the ISO game. Like maybe Kevin Durant can, but that's pretty much it. And if the Rockets are going to look that good on offense and play that well on defense, they're not going to get beaten. But my only concern is the Rockets only won this game by 3 points, despite essentially doing everything right. I mean, I couldn't tell you one thing that the Rockets did wrong in this game. And my concern is I don't know that they can do it again 2 more times. Obviously, I would like to see them do it 2 more times, but I'm not confident that they can.
Well, here's for me the silver lining in what you just said. Yeah, they did win only by 3 points, and obviously that's alarming considering the Warriors didn't have Andre Iguodala, who didn't play, who probably would have contributed.
Which
about
we didn't even mention, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously his defense is important. But the Rockets were able to win this game despite James Harden shooting 3 of 12 from 3. Obviously, on a more average night, he'd probably make about maybe 5 or 6 if he's attempting 12. So 3 of 12 is a pretty poor shooting night. It's only 25%. He's about a 38% 3-point shooter. So it's safe to assume that on a regular night, throughout the rest of the series, he'll probably make maybe 5 or 6 if he's going to attempt that many, which I'm sure he will. So obviously, if he had made those, if he had made his threes, and then the Warriors had Iguodala, that would probably even out, and I probably still would have taken the Rockets. I think still probably would have won this game because what was cool to me about this game also was that it just seemed as though the Rockets kind of took the Warriors out of what they do best, in the sense that rather than the Warriors. Just like what you just alluded to, the Warriors only had 14 assists last night, which obviously isn't good. It's not fantastic. The Rockets actually only had 13. But regardless, and that's the thing, when you have less assists, the Rockets are going to be able to win because they're a better team in isolation because they have 2 premier isolation stars, whereas the Warriors really only have 1 because in my eyes, Steph Curry is really not that much. He's not that excellent of an isolation player. He thrives off of free ball movement and fluid passing and all that stuff. Whereas Durant is really their only isolation. He's their true isolation machine. But also about they just seemed the Rockets. They just seemed as though they were getting Golden State sort of away from what they do best. They kind of, I wouldn't say they rattled the Warriors, but I feel it just felt like the Warriors were they were rushing things. They were. I guess a comparison I would have is in 2000, I believe it was 7 or 2008 when the Giants won the Super Bowl against the 18-0 Patriots.
Yeah, it was 2007 season, but technically the 2008 Super Bowl.
2007 season, yeah. Like those Giants against those Patriots and Tom Brady in general, they were kind of rushing him, and they kind of seemed like they weren't just being themselves. Like they were rushing things, and they weren't executing everything perfectly. They weren't doing things exactly how they regularly would. They weren't dominating, and they weren't doing what they did to be successful in their dominations in the past. And that's kind of what the Rockets did to the Warriors, in my opinion, because the fact that the Warriors were so isolation heavy, and the fact that you have Klay Thompson holding the ball with 10 seconds left and a double team, and he's going to have to make a fadeaway to win the game. Like that's just obviously not what you want. That's not Warriors basketball at all. Obviously, on a regular last play, you'd love to have Steph Curry handling the ball with Kevin Durant somewhere in the middle, and then obviously you have got Klay Thompson and the rest of the guys on the wings to ready to shoot a 3. You'd want Steph Curry handling the ball. So, or Kevin Durant at the perimeter, like one of the two, and then you'd want either Steph Curry doing off-ball movement or Kevin Durant in the middle. But and by middle I mean mid-range area.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were able to kind of get the Warriors away from what they like to do, and the fact that they made them uncomfortable was really it was nice to see. Because the thing about the Warriors is, in my opinion, when you get the Warriors uncomfortable, it's not too difficult to keep them uncomfortable because they play in such a way that's like it's so continuous to a point where, like, when it's not continuous, it's difficult to just snap back into it. Because when you remember, because obviously this team is different than they were in 2016 because now they have Kevin Durant, but I'm not gonna. It was never a bad decision to add Kevin Durant.
No.
Like, don't get me wrong. It's a good decision to add Kevin Durant, but he changes them in such a way that now it's almost like when the game is not going well, it's so easy to just say, okay, hey, KD, go ahead, take the ball, score the ball. Like, you're gonna say it was like, you're the best isolation player, best scorer in the NBA, whatever. Like, you can do this. Like, just go. It kind of gets them away from the whole idea of look for the best shot. It's kind of just where, okay, here's the ball to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's going to get a shot. Like, rather than Kevin Durant is going to get the ball, pass it to Steph, who's going to pass it to Clay, who's going to kick to Draymond in the middle, who's going to kick it back out to Steph, who's going to kick it again to Clay for a wide open three. Like, that's what they would have done in like 2016 when they didn't have Durant. But now that they have Durant, it's kind of like Durant or bust for lots of plays. And sometimes that's going to work because sometimes Kevin Durant is just going to be able to make everything, and he's going to have a hot shooting night and he's going to go for like 40. But then other times you're going to have nights like last night where he's going to have to put up 24 shots to get 27 points, which obviously isn't great. He's only going to make 1 3. Like, some of the shots that he was making, he was really only making because he was guarded by 6'1" Chris Paul, and he's just shooting over a chair essentially. Like, the fact that they were able to kind of get the Warriors away from what they're best at was really nice to see, because I feel like when you keep that up and you're kind of making it difficult for everyone to fluidly move off the ball, and you have someone like Trevor Ariza contesting everything like you were saying, the Warriors are still going to fall into that habit, I feel like, of going to Durant and just hoping that he'll be fine the next game. So given Trevor Ariza's defense, I feel like if Trevor Ariza plays as good defensively as he did in the remaining games, and PJ Tucker plays as hard and physical as he did in these two games, and Harden and Chris Paul just continue to score at a high level, 25, 26, 27 points and higher, then I really feel like the Rockets have a great chance to win this series in 7 games. But given, obviously, the Warriors they have the luxury of having 4 All-Stars, so they have to do much less right to win the game. The Rockets are just going to have to go similarly, in my opinion, to how the Cavaliers did in 2016, where they just play a perfect 3 games. And it's going to have to be about the full team, because I don't think James Harden or Chris Paul are capable of doing a LeBron James-esque thing similar to what happened then. The team as a whole is going to have to play amazingly. So hopefully that they can do that. And hopefully they get Clint Capella back involved, because he hasn't been too much of a factor in this series. In my opinion, he outplayed Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert a little bit in the past 2 series, but in this series he's sort of been mitigated by Draymond Green. Because Draymond Green, even though we give him a lot of crap, but he's still a really good defender. So Clint Capella getting back involved, and the rest of the role players just continuing to play with the same intensity as they did in Game 4 will really be the key to the Rockets winning the series. Because if the Rockets ease up at all, I don't think they have a chance of winning, because you have to play perfectly if you want to beat the Warriors, because they can play bad and still win. Like, they really don't need to play great basketball to win, because Kevin Durant can give you a sloppy 30 points. Steph Curry can give you a whatever fashion 26 points. Clay can give you 18, 19, and then Draymond can give you 8, 8, and 8. So they just have to continue to play as well as they possibly can, similarly to how they did in Game 4. But also a lot of credit to Mike D'Antoni, because he hasn't been revealing that. He's kept saying, like, we're not going to change anything, we're not going to do anything, but it's been pretty obvious that he has been making some adjustments. He just hasn't been broadcasting it, which is smart, because obviously, like you mentioned, the whole ISO heavy thing that they were in Game 1, they ISO'd again, and they ISO'd heavy. They were very ISO heavy in Game 2 as well, but the difference was they were different kinds of isolations, and that they were getting their shots up early on the shot clock. They weren't dribbling the whole time. They were still off isolations. They were doing more driving kicks instead of forcing shots. They were moving the ball a lot more once it was swung out after an isolation, stuff like that. So he's definitely done a good job, in my opinion. I think he's been an underrated factor in why Houston is not down 3-1, and he did a good job, I think, and he also did a good job of playing Chris Paul in the right spots and capitalizing on when James Harden was hot and playing correctly when James Harden wasn't hot. He didn't do that thing that some bad coaches. He didn't make the mistake that some bad coaches make of we're just going to keep going through this one player because it's live or die by him, as Billy Donovan always does with Russell Westbrook, or how Steve Kerr does with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry last night. To be honest, he wasn't drawing up any plays to get Klay Thompson wide open shots. He wasn't drawing up plays to get Nick Young any open threes. He wasn't drawing up plays for anything really. He was just kind of letting Durant ISO, and he was just letting Steph Curry roam around. And I don't know. It's just a weird thing also how Steph Curry magically was 5 of 7 in the third quarter, and then from 3, and then was 1 of 8 in from the field in the fourth quarter. That was just strange. And also, just a last thing, I guess, on this series, the stat that I was talking about earlier that I said that it had a caveat, I just found it. So with Kevin Durant on the floor in the regular season this season, with Durant on the floor, Steph Curry scored 26 points per 36 minutes.
Okay.
But Durant was on the bench, and when Durant was on the bench, Steph Curry scored 40.5 points per game per 36 minutes. So 26 with Durant on the floor per 36, and then 40.5 with Durant on the bench per 36. So without Kevin Durant on the floor, basically Steph Curry scored 455 points in 404 minutes. And then when you extend that to being over 48 minutes, which is the length of an entire game, obviously, Steph Curry without Kevin Durant this year scored 53.9 points per 48 minutes. The only player who's ever done such a thing is Wilt Chamberlain.
Yes.
Obviously, he scored 50 points per game on 48.5 minutes per game. So, Curry is on some Chamberlain-esque stuff per 48 minutes without Durant. So I think that just goes to show how much more free fluid they are when Curry is their main offensive option. He really is their offense. And if the Rockets can keep putting them into the trap of having Durant as their offense rather than Curry, then they have an excellent chance, I think, of taking the series in 7 games.
Yeah, and just to conclude this discussion about the Western Conference Finals, I think there's 2 different ways that this series can go. Either it's going to, obviously it's 2-2, but I think either this series is going to go like the Warriors-Thunder 2 years ago, where the Thunder obviously got to a 3-1 lead, this one being 2-2. But they got to a commanding position, and they felt good about themselves, and the Warriors looked like they were in disarray. Not really the case in this series, but nevertheless, the Thunder kind of pulled back on the gas almost, and like they obviously had 2 games at home, so that was huge, and like they kind of blew it, and they stopped doing what they were doing. Their key offensive players, Kevin Durant had a horrible rest of that series. Russell Westbrook, I think he wasn't that good. I don't think he was nearly as big of a drop-off as Kevin Durant. But like he just kind of fell apart, and like that's something that absolutely could happen in this series, because I think in the first 3 games, Chris Paul, he just looked tired, honestly. He looked like he just didn't have a lot of energy, and as you said, like in that 12-0 run for the Warriors, James Harden looked lost, and he looked like he was going back to his 2016 self against the Spurs in that Game 6, where he just looked like he completely blew the game in the series for the Rockets. So yeah, like I think that's a possibility, and the other possibility is the Rockets don't look back, and the Warriors just don't know how to respond, and I think that's would be a bit unprecedented, honestly, because we haven't seen that from the Warriors. It seems like every time the Warriors lose a game, they always bounce back. Even in that Cavs series, it seemed like that was going to be the case. But like, yeah, it is really hard to beat the Warriors in back-to-back games, and luckily the Rockets don't have to worry about that. They can win Game 5 and Game 7. But oh wait, yeah, they would have to win Game 4 and 5. So yeah, like that would be really tough. But thank God they got the regular season number 1 seeds. So they don't have to worry about playing 4 games at Oracle Arena. And yeah, they really saved themselves from that performance in Game 1. They could have really been screwed here by having the Warriors win in that game at home for them. But yeah, like this is going to be a fascinating series in Game 5, 6, and 7, and I'm really hoping it's not going to be another blowout, because that was like the only thing I didn't enjoy about that Pacers-Cavs series was that Game 6. Like it just felt like you could never really get any momentum for it, because it felt like every time there would be a super close game, and it'd be crazy whenever the Cavs would play at home. They would just go out to, what is it, like Wells Fargo Bank or something, and they would just lose by like 30 points. And it was like, okay, are you even that good? So, yeah. Like, I'm just hoping for an awesome series from here on out, and who knows, maybe it can go into contention for my favorite playoff series as well.
Yeah, I think just though the Rockets just kind of need to continue to play with a sense of urgency because I don't think there's any chance in hell that they can win Game 6 and 7
Yeah.
back to back. I think I feel like the only realistic shot they have of winning this series is if they win Game 5 because if they win Game 5, I wouldn't put it. It would be unlikely. Like I would not pick them, but I feel like they could muster up because the Warriors would for the first time with Kevin Durant be in a situation where they're playing an elimination game. They would feel like with their backs against the walls. I feel like Steph Curry obviously he's not great in pressure situations. Kevin Durant's really not good in pressure situations. Clay actually is decent in pressure situations. He's the reason that they were able to advance to the finals in 2016 to begin with. But Steph and KD aren't the best in pressure situations. So if they're down 3-2 in Game 6, I feel like maybe the Rockets can muster out one and win a close game in Game 6 if they win Game 5. Or, it'll be the Warriors play fantastic with their backs against the wall. They blow the Rockets out in Game 6, and then obviously it'd be back at home for Game 7 where the Rockets would have to play perfectly to beat Golden State. So I think for sure Houston has to win Game 5 because if they don't win Game 5, then there's no chance they win the series, in my opinion, because I feel like if they lose Game 5, then they're going to be down. They're going to be playing an elimination game at Oracle, and that's obviously not what you want. Playing an elimination game at Oracle is one of the most difficult things to do. It's only happened once in the past since the Warriors have been good, basically, which is obviously when LeBron James did it in 2016. So, it's going to be interesting depending on how Game 5 goes. Because if Game 5 is a Warriors blowout, the series is done for sure. But if Game 5 is a close Rockets win, then I feel like the Rockets might actually break through the finals, which is pretty great because you never know how the offseason could shake up with Durant. You never know. Maybe he'll be like opt out of his player option and go play in Houston. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and an underrated thing here has been Eric Gordon finally getting his act together, definitely in Game 2, but like 3 and 4 as well. But also the fact that after a crazy regular season where like it was just injuries galore, the playoffs have really been free of injuries, which has been awesome, especially for the Rockets. Because like every year, you see Chris Paul get injured, you see not James Harden get injured, having a slump or whatever, or like a Warriors getting injured. Luckily, Stephen Curry's back, so we don't even have to worry about him anymore. But yeah, like it's just been the best against the best, and it's been like both teams have everyone going, and it's just been really nice after this regular season where like we see a bunch of random people get into the All-Star game because of injuries, or like teams like Denver, where we could have seen the Nuggets in the playoffs potentially, especially considering they were tied for the same record as the Timberwolves going to that play-in game, but obviously losing out just because they didn't have Paul Millsap for half the season. And yeah, like it's really nice to be able to see a Western Conference Finals where both teams have the best players going in, and same for the East. All right.
Yeah.
So with that, I guess we can get into the LeBron James series, and I'm assuming this will come with a heavy dose of us praising LeBron and his exploits, and yeah, so everyone get prepared for that. So going into Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals, the Celtics and Cavs are both tied at 2 games apiece, obviously that game being tonight. And it's been interesting because unlike the Western Conference Finals, these have been mini blowouts, but like they're still blowouts. The first game beating the Celtics over the Cavs, 108-83. Celtics over Cavs again, 107-94, and then the Cavs returning serve at 116-86, and then winning Game 4, obviously on Monday, which was an amazing game, 112-102. So, what have you been seeing in this series so far?
Well, Game 1, LeBron James played one of the worst games I've ever seen him play.
Yeah.
He had 15 points, 7 turnovers, didn't shoot the ball well. I think he only shot 33% from the field, whatever it was. So, given that, I really wasn't alarmed because LeBron James, in my time watching basketball, has never once played 2 bad games in a row. I honestly feel like it's probably been about 7 years since he's played 2 bad games in a row. That was probably in the Dallas series in 2011. But he really, he's very good at, he never lets one bad game affect him. He doesn't really go into these slumps that people talk about. He's been in a bit of a 3-point shooting slump in the playoffs, but he's not really, it's not like his ability to drive to the rim is, it's unwavered. It always bounces back. So Game 1 was a little bit disheartening. I really didn't take it too far, even though everyone started overreacting. The Cavs also lost game 1 to Indiana, and then they won that series in 7 games. It was kind of after game 2 when they lost game 2 that I was a little bit worried because I think LeBron had 40 points and Kevin Love had 20-something. And even though the two of them played well, the role players played so horribly that they ended up losing the game. I think, what was the score you said, 108 to 94?
107 to 94, yeah.
Yeah, 107 to 94. They ended up still losing by 13 points, even though LeBron and Kevin Love had a good game. So LeBron's performance in Game 2 sort of showed me that this wasn't going to be a series like Toronto or Indiana where LeBron James could just be fantastic and carry them to victories, which is good because, that's going to give them a real dose of the finals and how the finals are going to be like, because obviously regardless of which team comes out of the Western Conference, LeBron James isn't going to be able to just have superhuman performances and carry them to wins in the NBA Finals. So it's good that the team is starting to understand that cannot happen even at this stage, because LeBron had a fantastic game in Game 2. I think he had 42, 41, whatever it may be, and then they lost handily as well. To me, it kind of signaled that they knew that they had to lock in defensively, even though LeBron said that he wasn't worried about being down 0-2. I certainly was, because given how well the Celtics have played, given that they have home court advantage, it really seemed like they set the stage for themselves to win this series, because the last time LeBron James was down 0-2 in the Eastern Conference was in 2008 against the Boston Celtics when the Celtics won the championship. So obviously it's been 10 years since LeBron James has been down 0-2 in the Eastern Conference because, obviously it's been his conference for the past, 7-8 years or whatever. But I was worried for them because I didn't, you never know with the Cleveland's role players whether or not they're actually going to play well enough to give LeBron some help. And if they do, they're probably only going to do it for a couple games. Or not a couple games. They'll probably do it for, for 1 quarter, and then they'll just whatever. Like, they never have really consistent games. I think to this point there have only been, other than Kevin Love, there have only been 2 instances of a player scoring 15 or more points. I feel like JR did it both times. And then maybe Kyle Korver did it once as well, so maybe it's 3 or 4. But regardless, the Cavs role players don't play well. The fact that Kyle Korver is your 3rd best player in the Eastern Conference Finals is a problem. It was very alarming for the Cavs. And then, then Game 3 happened. They blew them out, and I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Even though there was a Game 3 blowout, it could be similar to what happened in New Orleans and the Warriors in the second round, where they lose Game 3, but then they just win in 5, because you really can't have enough faith in Cleveland because of how poor their defense is and how poor they play in general, because, every series is going to feature a blowout at this point. So then Game 4 happened, and I felt better because Boston still played. They played well, but Cleveland just played better. So it kind of showed me that, Cleveland did show a little bit more commitment to staying consistent defensively. They played a really good first quarter. They gave up 84 points in the last 3 quarters of Game 4, but regardless, 102 for the game really isn't. That's good. It's not. Yeah, it could be better. It could be down to 98, 97, whatever it is. But 102 for a horrible defensive team is an accomplishment nonetheless. So it was cool that they were able to string together, good defensive effort and win 2 games. And the most surprising thing to me probably about Game 4 was the fact that they won by 10 points, even though LeBron James only had 3 assists. I'm sure you could find some statistic on the last time they were able to win a game with LeBron only having 3 assists. He had 44 points and 3 assists. Kyle Korver had 14 points, I believe, and he had 3 really good blocks. He played really good defense on Jaylen Brown. He was diving on the floor for loose balls. So it was really cool to see him do that at age 37, hustle his heart out, try his hardest. So, the series to me is just – it's not what I expected, because given how well Cleveland played against Toronto, I would have picked Cleveland to win the series in 5. I feel like they would have just went, straight through and just continued with what they were doing. It seemed like they were finally clicking because, LeBron had 2 really good games in Toronto, and then he had the game winner. But the role players played fine in Toronto and against Toronto. And, given that Toronto was a good team, it seemed like that would be able to carry over to Boston. But that didn't happen because this is the most inconsistent team in the playoffs, including all the teams eliminated.
Yeah.
So, except maybe Oklahoma City, but even there's a debate there. So the fact that they are even 2-2 is a great sign, because it could be worse. But it's not. It's a good sign, but it's not a great sign, because it's a good sign because it could be worse, but it's not a great sign because it could be better as well. They could be leading 3-1 had they just gotten it together from the role players in Game 2, or just LeBron had not played horribly in Game 1. So the series is interesting because of how poorly Boston plays on the road. They've only won one game on the road in the playoffs thus far, and that was the game that Philadelphia basically handed to them on a silver platter because of their poor execution down the stretch. Whereas they're undefeated at home, so the fact that they're undefeated at home does make me worry a little bit for LeBron because obviously if they're undefeated at home and they have home court advantage, you're going to have to play Game 7 in their building if it goes that far. So I think Cleveland's best path to victory is winning tonight because if they win tonight, I'm sure they'll win in Game 6 because Boston's horrible on the road. Their young stars just don't seem to be able to carry over their performance from the road or onto the road from home. And I think that's where this team really misses Kyrie Irving's presence because Kyrie Irving is at a point in his career where it really doesn't phase him where he's playing. He's an established enough player in the league to where his scoring on the road doesn't really differ from his scoring at home. So, Terry Rozier obviously has been getting a lot of he's been getting matched up with Cleveland's, ball handler, and he's not a great defender. He's better than Kyrie Irving, but he's still not very good. So he's been, basically unplayable defensively in the last two games, and then Al Horford hasn't really been involved much offensively the last two games. So those have been some good points. Those have been some good things for Cleveland that they've been able to exploit in Boston. They finally found some weakness in Brad Stevens' armor, which is interesting. And they just, in my opinion, all they really need to do is just win Game 5 because if they win Game 5 tonight, then they'll win Game 6 because of how bad Boston is on the road. Their young players just don't seem ready for, to go win tough games on the road yet. They've only won one game on the road, and like I said, that was handed to them. They really didn't earn that victory. That was kind of just Philadelphia losing rather than Boston winning. So, Cleveland just needs to kind of string it together for tonight, and then I think we're going to get Cleveland in the finals, keep LeBron's streak going 8 straight years, and that'll be cool to see him donning the Eastern Conference champion hat yet again.
Oh yeah, and definitely the hardest earned one, just in terms of the team he was playing with and talent around him and the competition even that he was facing. Like the Pacers team that we talked about obviously being completely amazing and just turning it on in that series. And the Celtics team being coached by probably the best coach in the league right now, aside from Popovich. And then obviously the Raptors suck, but I mean, whatever. We're used to it by now. But
50 wins though.
yeah, that's not nothing. And they did have the bench mob. But yeah, like this has been a pretty fun series. And what really surprised me was that the Cavs in their home games, they really turned on the defense. And like you could see in game 3, like that they were really trying to play hard defense, even if it wasn't working at times. Like they were really sprinting around the court and making their switches and putting pressure on the ball. I think one of the big things was watching right at tip off in game 3, all the Cavs just sprinting over to the on ball defender and like just being engaged in the game, and like that's compared to like some games you would see in the regular season or even like in earlier on in the playoffs where someone like George Hill would just be looking at someone while they were driving straight past him, or just I don't know, not being tenacious and like not giving all the effort that you had to him. Like I think we also are really seeing LeBron step his game up defensively. Like in the playoffs, he has had to put in so much effort on offense that like it's completely worn him out, so he can't play on defense, or like he's not going to be able to do what he can on offense. But it seems like he's really stepping his game up there, and like even when like someone blows by him, he's like chasing the chase down block, and like he's just trying to always stay involved in the plays and always set his teammates up in great positions. So like that's huge. But yeah, I didn't realize that he only had 3 assists in Game 4. That's really interesting, actually. I would be very curious to see how many games they've won like that, because I can't imagine that happening in any other situations, but at least he gave him 44 points, obviously. And in what is probably the least impactful injury of the season, Shane Larkin being down has been nice so that the Celtics don't have to feel the pressure to put him in over Semi Ojeleye, but like he's not going to make any impact by him being gone. He was a terrible point guard, and good thing he's not there to screw anything up for the Celtics. But yeah, like it's gonna be really difficult for the Cavs to win this series, just because they're gonna have to win one of the games against the Celtics at home. And I agree with you. I don't. Well, I'm not gonna say that because I didn't see the Game 7 against the Warriors coming. But yeah, like it seems like it's going to be a monumental task to beat the Celtics in a Game 7 at home. So hopefully they can win Game 5 if they really want to win this series, because I think they can win Game 6, not without any trouble, but not it's not gonna be.
It would be much easier to win Game 6 than it would be to win Game 7. We can put it that way.
Yeah, so like no matter what the series is going, well, no, I'm not gonna say that. That's not remotely true. But yeah, like this is gonna be difficult for the Cavs. It's probably their most difficult series since. I mean, in a series they were competitive. Probably that 2008 Celtics series. Obviously, there was the 2010 series against the Magic that they lost, but like they were just completely outclassed at that point by the genius of Stan Van Gundy. So yeah, like not much you can do there. But yeah, this has been a really fun series, and like it's been nice to see the Cavs play some defense because we don't see that often. Obviously, when they go on the road, their defense falls apart, so we're probably going to lose that for the next game. But hopefully, they can put up a ton of points because that's one thing we haven't seen even in the games that like the Cavs' role players have been having it going, like them putting up like a 130 or like 140 or like really putting some points on board and saving the pressure from their defense. Like all the games that they've been winning, like they've been holding the other team to like a couple points over 100 or like obviously below 100 has helped in game two. Sorry, not game two. What am I talking about? Game three, where they held the Celtics to 86. So like if they can just put some points on the board and like get all the role players going at once, because like as you said, like Kevin Durant has been very good in this series so far. He was horrible in the first series, so that'd be great if they could get him going. But yeah, like maybe get Kyle Korver some minutes and like actually get him playing well. Get George Hill to continue playing as well as he did in Game 3, and like just getting everyone else going. Like J.R. Smith is still been cold, and like obviously he goes back and forth on that, but at some point you got to get him going because usually he's better in the playoffs. And like the rest of the team is kind of stacked with a bunch of 3-point shooting that just isn't going right now, and they have to do something about that, especially. And Ty Lue hasn't been helping with that, with playing so many bigs. Like he's still treating Tristan Thompson like he's Mr. X Factor, and you can just bring him in and turn the tide of the series. That it remains yet to be seen, but yeah, like he's even doing that with Larry Nance Jr., and it seems like he thinks that he can beat the Celtics by playing big. I'm not necessarily convinced by that yet, but we'll see. Maybe that is the correct strategy because obviously the Celtics are trying to play big against LeBron and keep him out of the paint. But I mean, yeah, it's been an interesting series, and I'm looking forward to the game tonight. To be honest.
See, yeah, I agree. I think the one note about Ty Lue playing Tristan Thompson is that for whatever reason, Al Horford struggles monumentally when he's guarded by Tristan Thompson. So I feel like that's really the main reason why he has Tristan Thompson in there, because for whatever reason in the past, like Tristan Thompson has just dominated Al Horford, and it really doesn't make any sense because for some reason Al Horford is capable of outplaying Joel Embiid in the second round, but can't outplay Tristan Thompson in the conference finals. But regardless, I mean, Al Horford is an enigma of a player in himself. We talked a lot about him in the previous two series and how impressive he's been, but he really hasn't done all too much in this series. In terms of contributions, I feel like it's been much more about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum so far in this series. So, if the Celtics can get him back involved, that's going to be their key to being successful in winning this series in 7 games. So I don't think they'll win in 6 because I really just don't think that this team is capable of winning on the road. They've shown me nothing that says that they can win on the road. So also for this series, I feel like if they want to be successful, I just think that they need to get exactly like what you said. They just kind of have to get everybody going early, because the thing with LeBron is that when he himself tries to like facilitate and get everyone involved early, it sometimes it doesn't go well, because if he does that and they're not going, then he has to start scoring much later, and then when he starts scoring, they're already down big, so he really can't make up for it by himself. So, I mean, I feel like they kind of need to find a mix of where they're getting facilitated for. I feel like maybe you should task George Hill with the responsibility of facilitating for Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith. And then you task LeBron with scoring and then facilitating for George Hill, because George Hill is not good enough to create his own shot. But I think it would be wise of Ty Lue to not put the pressure of LeBron facilitating for everyone on the court by himself, because if he does that and then because basically, like, if he doesn't score from the beginning and they get down big, they're not going to be able to climb back from it, because we really haven't seen the Cavaliers make a comeback at all this year. I really can't think of it. I think they had by far the worst record in the league this year when trailing going into the fourth quarter. I think they only won like 3 or 4 or 5 games when they didn't have a lead to start the fourth. So that was obviously alarming in the regular season, but they haven't really shown much in the playoffs because they really haven't been down in these playoffs this far, other than against the blowouts against Indiana, because obviously they swept Toronto, and the one game that was close for Toronto, LeBron hit the amazing fadeaway floater. So it's going to be. I agree. It's going to be tremendously difficult for them to win. But another note about about Brad Stevens, I feel like again, I'm not going to say that he was out coached, because he wasn't out coached, because Toronto's not a good coach, but it seemed like he didn't adjust properly to how the Cavs played defensively. It seems like he kind of. I feel like maybe he was just missing something. Like maybe he just didn't play a certain player. He didn't have the right rotation on the court, or he just didn't emphasize something. But regardless, he should step up these remaining few games, and hopefully he's able to do that for Celtics fans. I personally hope he doesn't, because obviously I don't want to see LeBron go to the finals, and I want to see Houston go to the finals, because I think LeBron could beat Houston hypothetically. Much better chance of beating Houston than Golden State, that's for sure. But I think Brad Stevens just needs to kind of get back, and I'm sure he will at home. I feel like this game is really tonight's game, in my opinion, is going to come down to LeBron, because if LeBron really might have to go for like 50 points.
Oh yeah.
Unless the role players all play fantastically, and JR gives you like 15, and Kevin Love's give you 22 or 23, and George Hill gives you 10, and Tristan Thompson gives you 8 points and 10 rebounds, and Kyle Korver gives you like 3 or 4 threes.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Unless that happens, then LeBron really, if it's typical Cleveland night because playing at home to beat Boston, he really might have to go for 50, because he had 40 something in game 2 and they still lost. So he might have to go, he might have to do something crazy. Obviously, it'd be cool if he could go for the playoff scoring record against Boston, because obviously Jordan said it against Boston. But LeBron doesn't like to do all that stuff, unfortunately. I really feel like he's doing himself a disservice by not doing it, because I really feel like he could. On the nights that he's hot, I feel like he could easily go for 60 points. Yeah, I think that Cleveland has a good chance to win this series, but I feel like it's Boston's series to win, that's for sure, because all Boston has to do is win Game 5, which they can do, and then they can drop one and then play in 7. Because here's the thing. The thing with Boston is playing with house money, because if they lose, they have nothing to worry about. I mean, they're arguably their best player from a talent perspective is a rookie, and then they're being led by basically Al Horford, and then two 21-year-olds plus Terry Rozier, who's he's a backup point guard on literally every other team in the league. On almost every other team in the league. He'd probably start for some crappy teams like Orlando or something. But he's they have nothing to lose, because obviously nobody else is that young, with that little experience, with that many injuries. No other team is going to be able to say we took LeBron James to a Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, because all the other teams that have done that in the past have had either they've had their best player, or they've had like another star player to, I guess, not play as well as LeBron, but to, I guess, match the fact that they have a star. So they just need to relax, because if they lose this series, they have nothing to lose. It's just impressive that they've gotten this far with the number of injuries that they've had, the number of changes they've had to make, their coach basically being their most valuable piece, and obviously being led by two 21-year-olds and a savvy veteran. So if they want to win, they just got to keep being gritty. Marcus Smart has got to be Marcus Smart. Marcus Morris has to continue being Marcus Morris. Al Horford has to continue being smart and being in the right spots. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just need to continue doing what they've been doing these playoffs. Average 20 points or score 20 points or close to 20 points, or a little bit more than 20 points, somewhere in the 18 to 23 range, whatever it may be. So Boston can definitely win this series. I don't think it's going to be difficult for them if they choose to. But at the same time, I feel like it would be more difficult for Cleveland to win the series, but depending on how they play tonight, they very easily could. Because I'll put it this way: if Cleveland loses tonight, I don't see them winning 2 games in a row. But if Cleveland wins tonight, then I definitely see them winning tonight and Game 6.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, and well, I just lost my train of thought, but well, that is unfortunate. I had a good point too. Okay, well, yeah, we're both really looking forward to Game 5, because it's going to be a huge one for LeBron. Obviously, he's capable of winning 2 games in a row. Obviously, we saw in the 2016 him winning 3 games in a row against the Warriors, but obviously that was kind of fluky. But yeah, how amazing would that be if we just saw like LeBron go for 60 points or something tonight? And that'd be ridiculous. But obviously, LeBron's not that kind of player. But hey, you know what? Playoff triple double. Those are always fun for him to get. Maybe that's in the cards for him. And yeah, Brad Stevens is amazing. I mean, he's essentially been. I keep feeling like with this series, it's just LeBron James versus Brad Stevens, and almost like in a battle of wits in some ways, like LeBron. Because, like we talk about how it's LeBron coaching the team, not really tying Lue. Like you always see those funny clips of like LeBron like yanking someone up and being like, "You get in there," or like him going to sit down and like Ty Lue being like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm sitting, I'm tired." And
Yeah,
like it just feels like he's in charge of the team. And then you have Brad Stevens, who like is almost just willing his team to these victories, and like he's obviously playing all the right people in the right time. He's playing Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown tons of minutes, and like they're paying off for him. Like who would have guessed that Jason Tatum would be such a producer in the playoffs? And yeah, I think that it is important that Al Horford gets right because yeah, I didn't even realize to be honest that Horford was having such a bad series. I mean, not such a bad, but like below his standards, like he said in round one and round two. And that's one of the unfortunate things about Al Horford when he's at his best and playing like an awesome player. And you don't see it, and then when he's not playing well, you don't see it. So like it's just like where Al Horford never is going to get the credit, and like he's always just in the background when he's good or when he's bad. So that kind of sucks for him. But let me just look through and see if I had any other notes on this series. No, not really. I guess I was really taking notes on the Western Conference Finals, but yeah, this is going to be an awesome series, and if the Cavs can make it to the finals, I would. Yeah, I mean, eight straight is pretty good, and like I know Jordan's got that whole thing about six is greater than five. Well, you know, winning going to eight straight is better than winning six of eight. Like, just I'm just saying, like you got those 2 years in a row where you didn't make the finals. Well, LeBron's
lost one of the years in 1995.
yeah, and I mean LeBron, you make it to the finals every year, and you make it competitive every time against what's essentially the greatest team of all time, and then amazing Spurs team coached by one of the best coaches of all time, and like, come on, at some point you got to give him credit for this. Like, you don't see every superstar going out there and making eight straight finals, and don't you dare tell me that the East is incredibly weak or anything. Those Pacers teams from like 2012, 2013 are just as good as those teams that Michael Jordan had to face in the Eastern Conference Finals. That weren't any worse, and yeah, like just LeBron is very good, and it's always a joy to yeah.
Another point just on like the whole thing with the East. I mean, Toronto won 59 games in the Eastern Conference, and I think what we discussed this a couple podcasts ago, where I did the winning percentages against the West and the East, and they would have been a 55 team in the Western Conference as well. So the disparity between the Eastern and Western Conference is not nearly what they make it out to be. The East had 450 win teams, and all those teams would have been playoff teams in the Western Conference as well. So this whole disparity thing is completely dumb. Like it's like, I mean, also like the other thing about it is like when Michael Jordan played, yeah, the East might have been a little bit stronger, but the teams in the West were much weaker. So Michael Jordan was able to make it. That's why he lost more in the East and won more in the finals. Whereas for LeBron, it's the reverse, where the teams in the West are better and the teams in the East are a little bit worse. So to make it to the finals, but just can't win there. So a lot of people just don't understand that. But I mean, Michael Jordan, he doesn't have the longevity. He doesn't have a lot of the abilities that LeBron has to, make it to 8 straight finals. Obviously needed some years off. Obviously missed 1 year that nobody talks about and just conveniently gets ignored, even though he scored 55 points that season and clearly had not taken a step off. People love to make that excuse for him, but that's stupid. So, LeBron James is fantastic. And, if he's able to will this team to the finals, he'll have made 8 straight. And that means that, he'll have made it 4 straight twice. And as of right now, only 4 teams have made the finals 4 straight times. And that includes Showtime Lakers, Larry Bird Celtics, Bill Russell Celtics, and LeBron's Miami Heat. But, obviously LeBron's Cavs would be joining that if he's able to win this series against Boston, which would be pretty cool that he's on 2 of the 5 teams that have made, or that he's the focal point of 2 of the 5 teams that have made the finals 4 straight times. Nobody else will be able to say that. Unfortunately, if the Warriors make it to the finals, they'll be able to say that as well. And Kevin Durant might get some credit too. So that'll be unfortunate, but hopefully, as we just talked about, hopefully Houston can get this one out. But as far as Brad Stevens goes, this is just another point I wanted to make. I was really thinking about it the other day because this is something I've seen on some social media outlets as well. People have been discussing how many players they would legitimately take before they, like, in rebuilding a franchise, how many players they would take over Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about it, I would probably really only take about maybe 5 or 6. I'd probably like here's the players that I would take before I take Brad Stevens to be the head of my franchise. I'd take LeBron, obviously, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, James Harden, and then Anthony Davis and then Kawhi Leonard when healthy as well. But actually, maybe not even Kawhi Leonard because we have yet to see how well he can be without Greg Popovich and all that. So those are the 6 players that. No, that's only 5, right? Harden,
5.
Davis, KD, 5. Those are the only 5 players that I would for sure take before Brad Stevens because when you look at all these other pieces, right, like Giannis Antetokounmpo has no sense of knowing how to win. Kyrie Irving is really not that valuable as a player. Kawhi Leonard, we really don't know whether or not he's actually valuable or whether he's just playing in an excellent system. And then the other good players, those are all the top players. I don't think I'm really missing anyone because, even the young guys like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, I still wouldn't take over Brad Stevens because, they kind of fell apart. They should have won their second round series relatively easily, but they gave up like 3 games. So, Brad Stevens might be the sixth or fifth most important / valuable / want to build around player in the or not player person in the league. So that's extremely impressive of him. Not to take away from what the young Celtics have been doing because obviously they've been playing very well as well, but they're nothing without him because I can tell you if they had some other coach right now, they would have lost in the first round.
Yep, I would definitely agree with that, and yeah, it seems like those players are all just guys you can't replace what they do. You can't replace what Steph Curry does for ball movement and just setting up his teammates for assists. You can't replace what LeBron James does for willing his teams to victory and driving into the lane and just frankly doing everything. You can't replace KD's ISO ball, even if that sometimes he'll annoy you with his what's the opposite of ISO? I don't know, whatever that is. And, I forget who else you said, but yeah.
Harden, AD, but, even AD is a little bit subjective because...
Oh, no, I would take AD over Brad Stevens. AD just gives you so much that you can't get otherwise. He's one of those players that can just take over a game and just will his team.
He can. He's very capable, especially because he does it on both ends. He's one of the few players who can actually dominate a game on both sides of the ball in the same game. Because, obviously you have some players who can dominate it in one way, in different separate occasions, but Anthony Davis can really take over a game. He's kind of he's most similar to LeBron in the fashion of chase down block and then go dunk it on the other end.
Yeah.
From before. Obviously LeBron doesn't do that nearly as much as he does now, but Anthony Davis also, really the only element missing from his game at this point is making plays for other people because he's an amazing shot blocker, rebounder, scorer, steals. He's really good for a big, and then obviously just a little bit improved 3-point shooting and some playmaking. And he's probably going to be just as good as Kevin Durant and LeBron James, and better talent around him as well.
And then obviously just Harden's creativity, which is so...
ball handling, ability to draw fouls, scoring, shooting. Creativity is actually the best word just in terms of how he's able to get points even when he's not shooting well. Shot 3 of 12 from 3 the other night and still have 30 points. You clearly do not see that a lot.
Yeah. And I was actually going to ask you if you thought that this finals run, what could be a finals run, has been more impressive than LeBron James' performance in the 2007 NBA playoffs, where obviously they went to the finals against the Spurs. But now that I'm looking at it, I don't think it's actually that much of a competition. It seems like it's definitely this finals. Because if you look at the 2007 NBA playoffs, obviously I have it pulled up right now. I don't know the stuff off the top of my head, people. So you had the Cavs, the number 2 seed, facing off against the Wizards, who really were just Antoine Jameson. So he's good, don't get me wrong, but he's not an entire team. So obviously the LeBron James-led Cavs just swept past the Wizards. That wasn't really that much of a competition. I think that's pretty similar to the Raptors in terms of who they faced. Then you had the Cavs versus the Nets team that's kind of underrated. Here you had, in their prime, Vince Carter and Jason Kidd teaming up. So obviously that was an interesting series, won 6 games. And I think it's not really analogous to the Pacers series, but I don't know maybe if the Cavs were competitive in that series and their role players had really been involved in the Pacers series, maybe it would have looked more similar to this, where it could have been a 6-game series where they actually were competitive on the road. So yeah, that could have been interesting. And then obviously you had the Pistons, who were over the road ever since their 2004 finals. I believe it's 2004, yeah, where like they were just trying to ride out whatever players they had left in Torian Prince and Rasheed Wallace and who else do we have here?
Phillips.
Yeah, Chauncey Billups. That's right. So like yeah, they were kind of over the hill, so that wasn't that much of a competition. And obviously they get swept in the finals, but I mean, what are you going to do? It's an amazing Spurs team. It was one of the best. Maybe 2003 Spurs have some competition for that, but yeah, like, you're not going to beat that Spurs team just as like the Cavs aren't going to beat this Warriors team. So I think in a lot of ways it was more impressive what they did in this finals, especially considering the fight that the Celtics have put up. Even though they don't have the name brand players, who knows? Maybe in a couple of years, Jason Tatum and Al Horford will be remembered as having great careers from here on out. Obviously, Al Horford being a little older, but you know he can still have a late career peak. I don't know, whatever it's called. But yeah, like this has been impressive by LeBron. It's been really incredible what he's been able to do, and I would love to see him make the finals, obviously, just so he can keep that eight finals appearance streak up. That would be awesome, and I would love to see how long he could take it, because at this point it's just becoming harder and harder to dispel the importance of it. But yeah,
See, because in my opinion, this is the last year I think that there's a this is the best chance for a team in the East to break it, because if he after this season if he makes it and then he just leaves somewhere else, he's probably going to get to the finals again if he stays in the East, right? Like he's gonna. I mean, if he goes to Philly, then he's probably going to make the finals next year. It'll be competitive with Boston, seeing what they do with Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, or they're probably going to trade Gordon Hayward given how good Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are. Seeing as, in my opinion, they're probably already a little bit better than he is, considering Hayward's not that good of a defender. But he'll probably make it again next year if he moves to a different team. If he stays, obviously they're not going to make it next year. But if he chooses to go to Philly, or if he goes west and joins Houston, or then he's probably going to make it. So this was the best chance for a team in the East to break it. And it's so if he doesn't do it this year, then that's going to be interesting. But I do think this finals run for LeBron is more impressive also, because the thing with the 2007 Cavs team was that they were a very good defensive team. That's not something that gets talked about a lot. They had, some good defensive players in Larry Hughes, Drew Gooden, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, and whatnot. But this Cleveland team, so he was creating all the offense for that 2007 Cavs team. But the thing with this 2018 Cavs team is that they're pretty bad offensively and defensively. So him anchoring this team is obviously going to be more impressive, because he has to do it on both sides of the ball, and he's also 10 or 11 years older than he was then. So he's had to do it at an older age, obviously more wear and tear on his body, more mileage, more fatigue. And he's playing longer series because, like you said, he swept 6 and 6, so that'd be 4 and 12 would be 16 games. 16, and then this would be 7, 4, 11, and then this would probably go 7 as well. So he'll probably end up having to play more games to get to the finals this time as well. So. And, I mean, from a talent perspective, yes, this team will look better offensively given the regular season averages, because you've got Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, George Hill, Kevin Love.
Just because they're going to be using the numbers when they were on the Kings or the Lakers or the Jazz.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're not going to be looking at it from how they're not even going to be looking at it from their playoff numbers, because when you look at it, like up until the end of the first round, like Kevin Love was averaging like 11 points per game, and I think ESPN even released a story a couple of days ago that said there are legitimate there are so many numbers to back up that this is the worst supporting cast LeBron James has ever had. So to me, if he leads this team to the finals, this legitimately might be this is a top 3 carry to the finals. Obviously, you have Iverson, LeBron himself, and now we've never seen anything like this. So. And I do think it's a little bit sad how Kevin Love is going to be minimized when discussing that. But, I mean, let's be honest. Like he's had some good games, but for the most part, he's been a pretty big disappointment as long as he's been in Cleveland, unfortunately. His shining moments have been getting his arm ripped out by Kelly Olynyk. Stopping Steph Curry, which actually was really important. But other than that, he's really not done much. So, that's unfortunate. Kevin Love actually missed a game in the 16 finals, and they still won. So his value to that team really, I don't think can be. I don't think anyone should overestimate how valuable he is to that team. It's not like Kevin Love is end all be all. So I think it's okay if he gets excluded from some discussions because he played pretty poorly in game four in this series. So I don't think that he deserves a crazy amount of recognition. If Kyrie Irving was still here, then of course I would definitely give Kyrie Irving some credit because he would actually help LeBron, and these series probably wouldn't have even been that close because he would have someone reliable to actually give him 20 points per game.
Yeah, and like
At
that,
least.
and that's all we're asking for. We're asking for 20 points from one person, 10 points from another person, and that's it. Because LeBron can give the rest.
See, because here's the thing: in Game 4, his role players really didn't even play that well, but they just matched what the Celtics backcourt, his backcourt matched what the Celtics backcourt did, and they were able to win. That's all that happened. That's all that needs to happen. All they have to do is play to their averages, or just play as well as their opponents. And I mean, that's not a lot to ask because J.R. Smith, like, you're a veteran, dude. You have an NBA championship. You've been in the finals. You're a legit scorer. You have a Six Man of the Year award. Like, you've been a starter on 3 finals teams. George Hill, you're an experienced veteran. You've been deep in the playoffs. You led the league in 3-point shooting percentage before being traded to Cleveland. Like, all you have to do is combine for like 25 points, and you don't even have to shoot the ball that well to get to it, and that's all the help LeBron needs. Like, and Kevin Love, you just have to give LeBron like 16, 17 points. Like, come on, like, just get in the post and make 4 shots and then make like 2 threes, and then you're good.
Yeah. And I can't wait for like 5 years from now when we're being like, hey, remember that LeBron James team that was led by George Hill and Jose, I almost said Jose
Yep.
Canseco. Why did I say that? Jose Calderon, and like just being on the last legs of his career. And oh, remember we had Kyle Korver. He was 37 years old. Like he was going to shoot freeze. And yeah, they had Kevin Love, but that was kind of it. And like, because obviously we make all the jokes in the world about not us, but like everyone in the media, and they're like, oh, Booby Gibson, or oh, they had Dwight Gooden, or oh, Mo Williams. But I mean, I would take some of those at this point over some of the players on the Cavs. You know, at least they've been getting.
They had Saturnis Ilgauskas. LeBron life would be much easier, actually.
Yes.
He was a good defensive anchor, a good rebounder, and he just made the right play. Like he probably outplayed Al Horford in this series, to be honest.
Yeah, can you think of a good comp for Zadrunas Ilgauskas in today's NBA? Like, I just don't know the kind of player he was.
Similar to Tristan Thompson from a few years ago when he was actually good.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
He was a little bit more refined. I think I'm not exactly sure about this, but I think he had like a 12 to 13 foot mid range jump shot. Not from further than that, but he definitely couldn't shoot threes. But I think in his peak, I think he averaged about 12 points, 12 rebounds. Like he was a solid double guy for LeBron, and he was a good defensive player, but he wasn't like a good shot blocker or anything like that. So similar to Tristan Thompson.
Yeah. Career 1.6 blocks per game, so that's pretty good. But yeah,
It's pretty good.
not gonna blow the roof off the place or anything. But yeah, it's been an awesome series, and yeah, I guess we can move on from that. Okay.
Yep.
So now getting into some of the topics that I had. Obviously, I did some brainstorming because we kind of exhausted everything else from our NBA topics. So I'll give you some options here, and you can choose which one you like the best. So I have expansion teams and like some of the process behind that, because obviously we love talking about expansion teams, relocating. That's just something that comes up a lot for us. Then I have NBA lottery. That's kind of topical, actually. We should probably do that first, to be honest, because that obviously happened last Wednesday. And then we have a huge discussion on revenue sharing, which will be fascinating. And then we have looking ahead to the NBA free agency. So I'm actually going to take the choice out of your hands because I forgot about the NBA lottery thing.
Oh yeah, I was going to choose lottery anyway.
Good.
So it works.
Okay, so last Wednesday, obviously the NBA, with its draft, the system that we've talked about many times is how it works is the bottom, not bottom, every team that doesn't make the playoffs in the NBA is put into, well, it's given a couple ping pong balls, really, and it's put in a big machine. I think there's like 1,001 balls or something, and each team is assigned like a probability. I think the number one team gets like a 30% chance, and then it just goes down from there, obviously. And if your ping pong ball gets picked for the first overall pick, then you get the first overall pick, regardless of where your regular season standings were. And then they do the same thing for the second pick, and then they do the same thing for the third pick. So obviously this creates situations where teams that didn't necessarily have the worst record get to move up. That combats tanking because presumably the team with the very worst record wasn't really trying to win. It's very rare where you have a team like the Charlotte Bobcats where like they actually sucked that bad. So yeah, like that's definitely a plus to the NBA lottery system. But the big winner from the NBA lottery on last Wednesday was the Kings, who moved up from the 7th overall pick to the 2nd, with the Suns just staying at the number 1 overall pick, and then the Hawks moving up to number 3, I believe, from number 4. So obviously the big loser there being the Grizzlies, but it wasn't that big of a loser. They moved down from 2nd to 4th. So what do you think about the NBA lottery and what happened on Wednesday?
I was pretty satisfied with it. I would have liked to see the Grizzlies keep the 2nd pick because for the future, it looks like Sacramento actually already has some decent pieces. They have, Bohan Bogdanovic and De'Aaron Fox, and they've also got Justin Jackson, Frank Mason, Willie Cauley-Stein. They actually already have some young pieces, so them having the 2nd pick sort of seemed like it would just throw another wrench and another young piece that they would have to integrate and kind of put them 1 year further away from being actually relevant again. It would have been cooler, in my opinion, to see the Grizzlies have the 2nd pick because they're obviously going to be awful, and Marc Gasol considers his team a G League team, and so it would have been cool maybe to see a trade package send Marc Gasol and the number 2 pick somewhere for maybe someone, I don't know, whoever the Grizzlies may have wanted. To bring in with Mike Conley, hopefully he can finally stay healthy for a full year next year. My God.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe get him someone. Maybe you could do like Devin Booker or something, and then you get Mike Conley and Devin Booker, and then you get more picks in Phoenix. Because Devin Booker said that he's tired of not making playoffs, and I don't think Phoenix has any plans to make the playoffs.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, he said, "I'm tired of not making the playoffs," but they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you better not get. You better get used to it, buddy.
Yeah, you're probably not going to be in the playoffs for another 3 years, at least. So, it's. Otherwise though, I was glad that the Suns got the number 1 pick because while I just mentioned Devin Booker, kind of leads into what I was going to say. I think Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton could make a really cool duo. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton is the projected number 1 overall pick, and then there's also Luka Doncic, but he's undecided as to whether or not he's going to come out of the EuroLeague, which is an interesting decision, but nonetheless.
It'd be weird.
I was cool with the Suns having the number 1 pick. I had no issue with that. That was fine. For the Hawks having the number 3 pick, good because they suck. They need help badly.
Yeah.
They have no one. Dennis Schroeder unfollowed the Hawks on his social media account.
Oh wow, really?
He deleted all of his pictures with the Hawks, so he's probably going to get traded in the offseason.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, if he goes to the Jazz, that could work out.
Actually, that get traded. I really want that trade now.
Yeah, Dennis Schroeder to the Jazz would actually be a really good deal. That was just something that I was thinking about because when I saw that he was probably going to get traded because he unfollowed everyone and he deleted all his pictures and all that, I was thinking, the Jazz need a backup point guard.
Yeah, and he's a European player too, so Ricky Rubio could bring him right in.
Yeah, they would. They probably wouldn't have. And Dennis Schroeder's pretty good. I think he averaged like 17 points this year. He's not the greatest 3-point shooter, but they don't really need that given that they're already pretty spaced out with Joe Ingles and Donovan Mitchell and all that. So. There was another player that was also I can't think of who it was off the top of my head, but there's another backup point guard somewhere. It'll come to me later, but there was also talks about him possibly signing with the Jazz in the offseason. Dennis Schroeder that'd be a good deal. And then the rest of the lottery kind of it played out similar to how the main thing for me was just I wish the Grizzlies had the number 2 pick because I feel like the Kings probably have a higher chance of messing it up, and they also already have so much young talent. Because obviously, I don't think the Kings for sure aren't. They're not going to do that thing. They're not going to package the number 2 pick and send it anywhere for a young player because they already have so many, and they're probably going to want to build around their core of their 4 or 5 young players that they already have. Because De'Aaron Fox didn't have the best rookie season, but he's probably going to be a pretty good point guard. In the future, he's probably going to have some good point guard battles with like Dennis Smith Jr. and all that. The Mavericks slipping to 5 was unfortunate. Them going a little bit higher could have been cool because then they could have gotten the Mavericks some help. Hopefully they don't turn into a trash franchise after Dirk is done because, that would be a horrible thing. I prefer for most franchises to be like the Spurs where like you have, as your old star ages, you bring in a young star who you're going to make your next focal point, and then you really only have about 1-2 years of drop off.
Yeah.
I hope the Mavericks don't mess it up and like Dirk retires and then they're just horrible for the next 15-20 years
It,
That would
it
be
doesn't
really
seem like that'll happen, but yeah, that's always a threat.
because Dennis Smith is there and Harrison Barnes is there, and they're not horrible. Once Dennis Smith Jr. gets better, and given that the 5th pick this year is pretty good, they'll probably be back in the playoffs in a couple years. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the West is going to catch up as well. Because it's going to be so competitive in a couple years because you're going to have the Warriors who are still going to be good, the Rockets who are probably still going to be good. Then you're going to have
the Lakers.
Then you're going to have the Suns with Devin Booker. You're going to have the Kings with their young talent. The Mavericks. You're going to have the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and Ricky Rubio. And Portland if they keep their thing together. And then New Orleans with Anthony Davis. So the playoffs in the West are going to be insane.
Oh yeah.
So it was kind of strange to see the West, a West heavy lottery at the top.
Yeah.
We didn't see like Chicago or Orlando getting extremely high picks, or New York or anyone like that. New York probably desperately could have needed one as well because it looks like Kristaps Porzingis might miss all of next season with his torn ACL.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I read that a few weeks ago that he might be out all of 2018-2019 season.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Because he tore it in February, and I think because remember, Derrick Rose tore his, and then he missed the entire following season. So if Porzingis comes back, it's probably not going to be until All-Star break-ish, and by that point, New York won't be good enough to be in the playoffs, so they might as well just sit him and let him rest the whole year. So, otherwise the lottery was interesting, and then obviously the other piece that concerns, what we talk about the most is Cleveland. They fell to number 8. Meaningless. They're probably not going to be able to get anything for it. The only thing that I could possibly think of is if Kawhi rejects the Supermax offer from San Antonio and then you package Kevin Love, Rodney Hood, George Hill, and the number 8 pick to San Antonio for Kawhi Leonard with some second rounders and a future first round pick, whatever. They'd probably have to throw some crazy package. But otherwise, from the way that it's shaped up, it's probably just going to be LeBron's going to leave and they're going to use the 8th pick to try and maybe get like someone like Michael Porter Jr. or do the stupid Dan Gilbert thing to do and get someone like Trae Young because whatever. But Cleveland probably won't do the best thing to that pick because their ownership is awful and LeBron's going to leave and they're going to try and fix it without him again. And it's probably going to fail, and then Kevin Love's career is going to be shameful until he's a free agent again. So that's probably what's going to happen. But otherwise, the lottery was fine. I didn't really have any complaints about it. I wasn't seeing as the Timberwolves are finally out of the lottery. I wasn't exactly rooting for anyone to get the number 1 pick or anything. But it would have been cooler to see that the teams that only have one good rookie, kind of like Chicago with Lauri Markkanen. It would have been nice to see them kind of add an additional piece because obviously the more young talent, the better that you're capable of being in the future. Philadelphia's going to have 10th. I don't think that's going to be an impact. I feel like it'd be wise for Philadelphia to maybe come up with a trade package or include that in a sign and trade, maybe with Cleveland, if they're going to do a LeBron sign and trade or a Kawhi sign and trade. They can't do a Kawhi sign and trade because he's under contract still. But regardless, or actually, I guess you could with his extension, you would be a sign and trade. But the lottery to me was nothing crazy. It was cool that the Phoenix got the number 1 pick. Hopefully they don't mess it up and draft Doncic because him and Devin Booker play the same position. Kind of probably pissed Devin Booker off if you're going to draft a player at his position because I don't think you'd be able to play both of them at the same time. Seeing as he's like Devin Booker's like 6'6" and Doncic is like 6'8", so they kind of be doing the same thing, and I don't think either of them are true point guards. So that would be kind of a problem. So hopefully they do DeAndre Ayton, and DeAndre Ayton is on record having said that him and Devin Booker could be similar to a Kobe Shaq 2.0, which is not insane because but I think Devin Booker is honestly going to be. He's already. He's 21 years old, and he's already averaging 25 points per game. So if he ends up able to win championships, then he actually might be better than Kobe Bryant. But
but I could see him turning into a T-Mac and just flaming out.
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that as well. But I'm just saying if he keeps it going because he's already a more efficient scorer from 3. All he has to do is step up his efficiency from the field by like 2 points, and then he's going to be higher than Kobe Bryant. So, I don't want to sit here and act like Kobe Bryant is like the key to winning either. It's not act like he didn't create any problems with Shaquille O'Neal, but and just for anyone who's listening, I'm not going on record and saying Devin Booker is going to be better than Kobe Bryant.
No, I didn't think you were, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that Devin Booker has extreme talent, even though his 70 points was not really 70 points, but 25 points per game as a third-year player is nothing to scoff at. I think him and Karl Anthony Towns are the only 2 players from that draft class who average 25 points per game over season. And he's one of the best young players in the league, and he was also kind of a draft steal. He's kind of like 2015's Devin. He's kind of like 2015's Donovan Mitchell, other than the fact that Phoenix is obviously a horrible situation. They really need to fix what's going on down there. Hopefully, they can do that with the number 1 pick.
Yeah, it seems like they just need to work on their player development. Like, they keep bringing in talent, and then they're not doing anything with it. I want to blame it on Robert Sarr for their owner, but, I mean, I don't really know what else he can do at this point. Maybe hire better coaches, but, I mean, as we said in the last podcast, there aren't really any better coaches.
Oh, they hired the Jazz assistant.
Well, yeah, I mean, Igor's good, but, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully that works out for them. They also, I mean, at this point, in my opinion, you got to get rid of, like, Tyson Chandler and Dragon Bender and
Dragon Bender's a bust.
Yeah, Dragon Bender is awful. And then you have Tyson Chandler, who's old. You don't need him. He's not going to be teaching these young guys how to win or anything. He was carried to a championship. I'm not going to say carried to a championship by Dirk Nowitzki, but nobody would even really think about Tyson Chandler too much if it wasn't for that one, run in 2011. And then Marquise Chris really hasn't been working out for them. Eric Bledsoe's obviously gone now. Brandon Knight is not good. TJ Warren has some potential defensively. Josh Jackson is good, though. Devin Booker, Josh Jackson, if they can get that's the thing. Like, I think Devin Booker, Josh Jackson, and DeAndre Ayton can be a really good big three in the future because, you got Josh Jackson, who's the long defensive athletic wing. You've got Devin Booker, who's a scorer, and then you have the, athletic modern-day big men in DeAndre Ayton who can shoot threes and would need to work on defense a little bit, but is already really good offensively and could probably make an immediate impact for them. He could probably be a 15-point-per-game scorer at least in his rookie year. So I think DeAndre Ayton is a clear choice at number 1. At number 2, I'm not exactly sure who I would take for the Kings because I feel like they shouldn't have the pick.
Yeah.
But the number 2 pick, I guess, would be Doncic.
I mean, because they would still get the draft rights if he came over like 2 years later, right?
Yeah, but I feel like, they would. But I think the issue with taking Doncic is that, I mean, you have Bojan Bogdanovic, who's kind of like also a European shooting guard. And then, I guess you'd have to play Doncic at the 3, but then you've got all those other, then you got Buddy Hield on that team too. And then you've got, Justin Jackson and Frank Mason. They have a lot of players. So,
but are they really just going to draft another center? Like, that's been going horrible for the past couple of years.
Who, Luka Doncic?
No, like the Kings drafting another center, like to try and balance that.
No. I think they'll probably draft Luka Doncic. If they get the 2 pick, if the Suns for some reason don't take Luka Doncic, I don't think Sacramento will take DeAndre Ayton because, I mean, what are you going to do with DeAndre Ayton? Like, you suck with centers. Like, Willie Cauley-Stein hasn't been good. You couldn't do anything with DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
But we just ruined DeAndre Ayton's career.
Yeah, and I'm only seeing the praises of Costa Koumfis for so long. He's not actually that good.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And, I mean, also, in general, it's a guard-centric league at this point, so the Kings will probably want to take a guard. Whereas the Phoenix already has a guard, and they have a wing. All they really need to do to complete, have a complete team is have a good big. So I think, I don't know what the Kings are going to do with it. The Hawks will probably. I feel like the Hawks should take Marvin Bagley. I mean, he seems like the most reasonable choice at that point. His NBA comparison, I think, has been Chris Bosh. That could be good for them.
Yeah, that'd be nice to see another Chris Bosh.
Because John Collins and Marvin Bagley together would be pretty cool. They'd be a pretty good big man duo in Atlanta. So. All they would really need to do is just get some guards and, at some point. And they could be pretty decent in the future. So,
yeah. And it'd be nice to see the Hawks doing better again. It seems like they've always been a franchise that hasn't remained in the basement for too long. That's probably because of good ownership, but they've always had really good coaches as well. But yeah, like the Hawks.
A playoff run. I think they had one of the longest playoff streaks in the league. I think they made it every year from 2007 to 2017.
Oh. That's a good stat right there.
At the time, they had
of course, yeah.
Not ever, because then you've got obviously all those other historic teams. But up until because this year they made it last year, right? I think they were they were the
wait.
fifth.
Did they go against the Raptors? Maybe.
No. The last year was Raptors Bucks.
Yeah, you're right. My bad.
Yeah, no. What was last year? It was 2. Cleveland was 2. Cleveland played.
So there was the Bulls, the Bucks, and the There's one other team, and the Pacers that all had losing records.
Oh no, yeah, I guess maybe they didn't make it last year. Whatever then, 2007 to 2016.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was Boston Bulls.
You're all
looking up. Cleveland, Indiana. Then it was Toronto, Milwaukee, and then it was Washington, Atlanta.
Oh crap! You might be right. That actually does sound right now. I'm hearing it.
Washington, Atlanta. Or Atlanta, Washington.
Here, let me see. Washington, Atlanta. Yeah, you're right. Nice job.
So yeah, 2007, 2017, because LeBron swept them in the second round. That's right.
Dang, so they even had a winning record that year. Okay.
Yeah, this was their first. Yeah, this was their first tanking season because they got rid of. They threw out like Dwight Howard and.
43 wins. That's pretty good.
43 or 53?
43, not 53. No.
53 was the first seed last year. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully Atlanta can get it together because they were pretty good for a decent stretch with Al Horford. They really made the most of Al Horford's career. He made the playoffs every year he was there.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, he's actually played in the playoffs every year of his career. Good for him.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much all for the NBA lottery. We've talked about how we would reform the NBA lottery, and we don't really need to bring that back up again. I suggest you just listen to some of the earlier podcasts we've done on NBA coverage if you want to hear about that. But yeah, so that's that. Okay. So then we have expansion teams, revenue sharing. Let's do revenue sharing. I'm looking at my outline right here, and I have like 2 bullet points on expansion teams. Not really. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's including the expansion draft. And then I have 20 on revenue sharing. So
yeah, let's talk about it. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by revenue sharing, so let's get into that.
Great. So okay, for anyone that's not aware, basically what revenue sharing is in sports is it's where teams that make more money or have more money on payroll or pay more for their players, they have to give up a certain amount of money to the lower funded teams. So
wow.
Yeah, so like in the NBA, this would be a situation like the Lakers, who are usually have either the highest payroll or like they put the most into their team. They have to give up a huge chunk of money to teams like the Grizzlies, who don't have a lot of money, and that also comes down to trying to make sure that everyone has a fair shake because that teams don't play in the same market. So like obviously the Lakers playing in Los Angeles, they have a much better chance at winning because they have more people in their market, so they're going to make more from ticket prices, they're going to make more from entertainment, from the TV deal. And the Grizzlies, on the other hand, have a very small market in Memphis that's also divided up further by 2 other pro sports teams, and they have a horrible TV deal. You're not going to believe how bad it is when I tell you. And they just don't have as much money. And sure, they have apparently not had good ownership. I still don't know how it's possible, considering that they had so much success. But yeah, apparently there's some talk about them having bad ownership groups. But yeah, if you just don't have the people and don't have an opportunity to get the funds, at some point it's not fair. And that does portray what you guys probably think is my opinion. I don't know if that's my opinion. I'm really ambivalent on this, but not ambivalent. I'm unsure on it, which is why I wanted to talk about it. Because in a lot of ways, it's almost a political issue. Because people talk about redistributing the wealth or whatever, and that's essentially what's happening here. Because I'll just go through some of the crazy statistics that I found when I was researching this. So apparently, last year, 14 teams. You know what net income is, right? Where you got all your revenues, like the money that you bring in, and then you subtract it by the expenses. So 14 teams, they were in the negative last year.
Oh my god!
They lost money.
That's half the league.
And even after revenue sharing, there were 9 teams, and this is receiving millions and millions of dollars to offset this. 9 teams were in the negative still. They still lost money, even though some teams were received up to $30 million. They were still in the negative. And this even brought teams like the Cavs and the Spurs into the negatives. The Cavs and Spurs lost money last year. They didn't make money.
That's absurd.
The Cavs have freaking LeBron James, and they lost money. That's insane. So obviously, this only takes into account the basketball side. So sure, if LeBron's bringing in the endorsements or whatever, that's going to bring more money. But still, that's huge. And in just a source for this, I found this from ESPN, and there were a couple other sources that backed it up, so I felt pretty good about it. So just some other crazy statistics on this. So the Pistons, I couldn't believe this, honestly. They had a net income of negative 63 million last year.
Yeah, that's absurd.
And even after revenue sharing, they had negative 45 million. They lost $45 million last year. And that's why they made, this was just a theory they put out, but it seems pretty reasonable. That's why the Pistons were probably pushing for a downtown stadium so that they could get the heck out of that place and they could actually get some fans in the building so they could drive up ticket prices and make some money back. So
That's sure.
So just tell me what you're thinking about this so far, because I'm going to get into TV deals after this.
Well, I actually didn't even know that this was that much of an issue, but I mean, given given what you've just said about it, it clearly seems like a huge problem. I mean, I mean, to have that many teams in the league losing money obviously can't be good for the league at all. So, I mean, if you have teams that are making such surpluses of money, I definitely feel like some of it should be redistributed to kind of even out, you know, how much money the league is making overall. Because I mean, it doesn't really seem fair that the league would have a team in a bad area and they're losing $63 million a year or 45 after revenue sharing when you have other teams making so much more money. So, I mean, yeah, if it were up to me, I would definitely say that it should be redistributed to give every team an equal chance of being able to actually make money. Because I mean, people have jobs that they have to make money for. You can't just be sitting around losing that much money every year. So, I mean, because obviously, I'm sure that teams like the Pistons, for example, if it's not changed, they're probably going to be losing money for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and they're just going to go bankrupt like the Pelicans had to.
Exactly, they're probably going to have to be owned by the NBA, and then there's going to be a David Stern thing.
Yeah, and then we're going to have another Chris Paul not go to the Lakers. No,
exactly.
But yeah, like it's absolutely ridiculous, and I didn't realize it was this bad because like I come from a baseball perspective where this is always an issue because like there's no salary for when like you're negotiating in free agency. So like you'll have teams that are running like a $30 million payroll versus like a $250 million payroll, which by the way is ridiculous. Like it's really bad in baseball, but I had no idea it was this bad in the NBA, and obviously the salary floor is a lot of the problem where you force teams to spend like 85 or I don't even know what it is, maybe 90 million every year in terms of their contracts. So that's a huge just bullet hole in your wallet every year. And like if you can't afford that, well, tough luck, buddy. You got to get another ownership group or something. But
exactly, and also it's just, I mean, it's going to be deterrent, but it's not sustainable either because I mean, if you have all these players playing for these teams that aren't generating any money and that they're not going to be able to sign for bigger contracts, obviously when there's because obviously the salary cap inflates and deflates on the summers and stuff because then you have the boom of like 2016 where Mike it's getting paid $153 million and stuff like that. So obviously he signed, but like in the future, you're probably going to end up having more situations if this continues of. Because like I'm not sure who the player was, but there was some player who was drafted by the Vancouver Grizzlies who like straight up refused to sign for the team because he just didn't want to play there, so they had to trade him or something. He just refused to sign his rookie deal, so they traded him to get another pick or something like that. But I mean, if you have that, if you have all this constant loss of money, like it's just going to make these markets even less and less valuable to both free agents and young players coming in. And I mean, you're really if this continues, you're really only going to have like 10 teams that a player is going to want to play for. And for all we know, like, I mean, if this just continues and no one's making money and like nobody wants to spend their time, I mean, to think that a team like Cleveland is losing money even with LeBron James kind of just goes to show that, like, I mean, even the players who seem like they're in relatively decent situations are not in great situations in terms of their team management and how the team is running and everything. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe in like 10, 15 years, if this isn't solved out or whatever, there are only going to be like 10 legitimate teams in the league and all the stars are going to want to play on 10 teams because, I mean, they probably have better opportunities to get endorsements. And, I mean, their team in general just isn't trying to do, isn't trying, because obviously at the end of the day, a lot of teams are going to prioritize the business over winning. And, that's happened a lot. And that's why a lot of star players have left their teams. If that's going to continue to happen, then they're probably going to become more and more unhappy stars. And they're probably just going to want to leave. And that's just going to ruin the league because there's just going to be less parity and less competition.
Yeah, and like I think that Cavs and Spurs example gains even more significance when you realize that the Cavs and Spurs were in the positives for their net income before revenue sharing. They were making money before revenue sharing. But after revenue sharing, they were losing money because they got money taken away from them. So let's say they were making, I don't know the exact number because it was a confidential report or something. I don't know if that's true or not, but like the Cavs and Spurs, let's just say they were making $10 million last year. And then they had to pay out like $20 million in revenue sharing because of how good they did. So then they were suddenly losing $10 million. So that's the other side to revenue sharing, and like that's the real debate here. So that's just some crazy statistics right there, but just wait, it's going to get even crazier. So now I'm going to get into the TV deals, which I think is probably the most insane thing here. So the TV deals, obviously, they're negotiated by the teams and the local networks within the area, and obviously you get exclusive rights to all regular season games and whatnot, some playoff games too, but most people just watch the nationally televised games. But just in terms of the regular season schedules, this is crazy. So obviously, the team that makes the most from their contract is the Lakers. But do you know how big the Lakers TV contract is?
I have no idea.
They make $150 million every year from their TV deal. Now keep in mind the NBA salary cap is like $100 million.
That's absurd.
Yeah, so like right below that is the Knicks at $100 million. Yeah, it's that big of a drop off. And then this I can't believe this either. The Warriors, they're an amazing franchise. They're doing awesome. They make $29.8 million a year.
Are they third?
No, thank God.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank God. Okay, I was gonna say the drop off is that big from 2 to 3. Then okay.
No, that'd be disastrous.
The Warriors only making 29 is absurd. The Knicks are.
And obviously they're helped a ton by playing in like 30 nationally televised games a season. Obviously each team gets a cut of that, but even still, and that's obviously coming from the fact that the TV deals are negotiated on like a 15-year, 20-year time frame. So it was just negotiated when the Warriors weren't that good, but still, like to even be competitive with like this, it just shows how good their ownership group and their general manager has been with keeping that up. So yeah, there's that. Oh, and that's not even including the bonuses for the playoffs. But get this, the Grizzlies. So I mentioned earlier that this was a really bad TV deal, but it's really bad. They get $9.4 million a year from their TV deal.
That's horrible.
They don't even get a tenth of the salary cap from the TV deal.
That's awful. That's quite awful.
And like to even be competitive at that point, where you have to get you're barely getting anything for the getting your games televised, is ridiculous, and like it just shows why like the Grizzlies are always like at the forefront of getting relocation talks, and I think their new deal just got renegotiated, so like they finally have something. But from what I was hearing, like it's just not that much better because like there aren't that many people that want to watch Grizzlies games in the local area because everyone's either going to Titans games or Predators games or just doesn't care about sports that much. So like it's just a humongous disadvantage when you have a team that makes essentially 15 times less than the best team. And like not even the best team, just like the team that's in the best media market. So that's absolutely insane. And like the biggest reason why like all these teams are in the negatives is because, well, this is a capitalist game here, so the biggest strategy is going to be running a deficit and hoping that it eventually pays off for you because the NBA just keeps growing. But unfortunately, when the NBA grows, the salary cap grows as well, especially when you have giant spikes like we've had in the past couple of years where the salary cap goes from 80 million to 110, and like you expect it to go all the way up to 130, and then it stagnates around 110. You're like, oh crap. We spent way too much money on these players because we thought we would have 20 million more in salary cap room, and that's why you see teams like the Trailblazers, like the Raptors, like trying to think of some more examples, can't. But yeah, like they just are hamstrung for money because like they can't put any more money into their team, and like if they want to dive into the luxury tax, oh boy, you're really going to be stuck paying a lot of revenue sharing, and yeah, like just the top teams are having to pay huge paychecks for revenue sharing, but like at some points it has to be wondered like if that's even a problem. And I'm sure you're wondering at this point how revenue sharing is calculated by the NBA. Like hopefully they're not just doing the biggest market or whatever. And from what I could gather, and obviously like it's not going to be some exact formula because that's going to be top secret because teams would just maximize what they can from the variables, but it seems like revenue sharing is calculated based on market size first, then your expected revenue from your market size versus your actual revenue. So a team like the Clippers maybe would be a good candidate for receiving revenue sharing based on that because they are in a massive market, but then not many people actually go to their games because they're all going to the Lakers games or the other 8 sports teams that are in LA. Or let's see, what's another good example? Let's say the Nuggets. The Nugget in Denver is always a huge market, but they don't have the best attendance. I don't think. I'll double check that because I actually have no clue. But yeah, like just a team like that where like they don't have that many people coming to their games, and yeah, like it makes a huge difference. And apparently that was one of the big factors. One of the other big factors is expense levels. So like if you are just in the hole like a team like Detroit was, then yeah, like you're gonna be receiving a little more because of that. And it looks like the Nuggets were, yeah, 20th in the league in attendance in this past season. So yeah, like to be probably a top 10 market and then be 20th in the NBA in attendance, despite having a really good team, that's a really big problem. So yeah, but it seems there is a weird thing here where it seems like if you overperform, you have to pay into the system. So in a way, you're getting punished for doing better than would be expected. But if you underperform, so like you have a good team, but then like you do bad for whatever reason, or like you're not doing as well as you should on the general management side, you receive from the system. And I think that's the most basic debate here is if the people who outperform what is expected of them should be punished for those who underperform, whether it be their fault or at no fault of their own. And yeah, like it's a really tough debate. Like I think in a lot of ways it's one of the most basic debates in politics, honestly. And I'm not looking to get into any politics debates, but yeah, like it's tough.
I mean, to just think that like the Grizzlies are in such a situation where like they're already at such a disadvantage, but that I mean the revenue sharing literally like makes such little difference, if any difference at all for them is pretty sad actually. Because I mean, while you were talking about it, the one thing that I kept thinking about was in the middle of the first round this year of the Eastern Conference, they talked about the announcers talked about how Indiana, despite being such a good team this year, as you and I've talked about multiple times, they only played two televised games on television this year. And
well, in nationally televised.
yeah, national television, yeah. And like obviously, then you think about like their TV deal situation, even though that they were a pretty good team, and you just think about how unfair it is because then you have a team like Cleveland, who as a team really wasn't that good. But I mean, they played so many more games on national television. I think they played like 30 or 22 or 22 to 30. I can't remember the exact number, whatever it was. But
yeah,
I mean, the fact that sorry,
and not only that, but the Pacers were not a good team in terms of attendance either. Like I'm trying to find
exactly.
like 20. Oh my God, 27th in the league.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana doesn't seem like the biggest basketball town.
Yeah.
And people probably didn't even think that they were going to be that good. And, so that obviously probably hurt the start of the season. You probably didn't have that many season ticket holders or whatever because Paul George left and all that. But, then, like, to me, yeah, it really just does seem like an unfair system. And, I mean, for however they're going to do it, they definitely need to work out a way to balance it or do something about it because you can't have the Lakers making $150 million just because they're in Los Angeles on a TV deal. I mean, and you can't have excellent teams like the Cavs and Spurs losing money just because other teams need it.
Yeah, no, and that's essentially the debate there, and it really is difficult because I mean, yeah, like you don't have an option but to make it a level playing field because you can't have a baseball system where like you have one team and like a couple teams at the top and you're like, oh well, they're gonna win because they have more money. Like nobody wants that. You watch sports to be entertained, not reminded of the hardships of life and the class struggle that's always going on. Like you want to see a game and you're like, okay, you got the Hawks here and you got the Grizzlies here, and these teams are on equal playing fields, and it's going to be a fun game because I know that both teams had an equal chance of winning coming in, and like they both had a good chance in free agency of getting players, and like it feels like the winner of this game they won because they were the better team that day, and like that's the problem, and like just sports in general in the U.S. is like it's salary caps cause problems, and luckily this isn't that big of a problem in the NBA. But even a team like the Warriors, like you could just dive into the luxury tax if you want to and spend like a ton more than any other team, just because you want to and you have the money to, and like it's almost like bypassing the rules just because you have money and it can make the league money as a result, just because you can, and like it's at the expense of teams that just can't do that. And yeah, I get the argument. Oh, you should just bring in another billionaire for like some poor team and they can be better. But like, I mean, that's easier said than done. It's not like a ton of billionaires are looking to get into sports. Like, yes, a lot of them are because everyone thinks, okay, capitalism, how it works is it's always just growing and growing and growing. So the earlier you can get in, the better. But like it's not easy, and yeah, who knows? Like, if you want to hear my political opinions, I don't think capitalism's lasting much longer beyond the singularity in the next 10 years. So yeah, like that's not going to be something that's going to be good. Obviously, the singularity just being AI rising up. So not rising up, you know what I mean? Like taking over too many jobs, and then unemployment comes up. But yeah, like just I feel like that sports becomes too much of a microcosm of society when money becomes too big of a problem, and in the NBA, it is like it just is, and obviously billionaires are fine running a little bit of a deficit, being in the hole a couple $1 million every year because they know that it'll pay off in the long run, or they'll have like one really good year and they'll make a ton of money off of that and like a ton of marketing off around it. Like a team like the Cavs, they probably weren't actually in the hole, as I said, just because of all the stuff outside of basketball that LeBron James brings. But even still, like you should be able to make a profit just from doing the one main thing that you're doing. Like if you're putting on basketball games, you should be making profit for putting on basketball games for all the attention it gets. And like in a lot of ways, it reminds me of YouTube. In a lot of ways, where like you'll see channels that have millions of subscribers. Well, not millions. That's a bad example. They are making a lot of money. Let's say hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and like they're making like thousands of a penny off of like a view. And like you'll see people get like 1 million views on a video and get like $1,000. And you're like, are you kidding me? Like they got 1 million views. If you were on TV or something, and you got like 10,000 views, you'd be making way more money. And like I don't know. It's always the discrepancy that's the biggest concern, and obviously you have to doubt the validity of anything that strays too far from the norm. Numbers like 14 out of the 30 teams not making the correct net income, like not correct profit off their net income. Obviously, that can't be entirely true because it's just too extreme compared to what we normally hear. But at some point, like we know that there's always going to be a discrepancy between teams in terms of how much money they make and how much their billionaire owners can finance them. But yeah, like it's you got to think the true value lies somewhere in between. And there are teams out, even if there's one team out there that's running a deficit, that's a problem.
Yeah, and also, I mean, when I think about it, it's like when you brought up relocation, it's like even if these teams were to relocate, it probably wouldn't even help because I mean there are just so few areas that they could probably go in the United States where it could make that much of a difference. Because because obviously when you're starting a new team in a new place, you're going to have a lot of the same initial struggles. So I don't know. I mean, maybe some of these teams would benefit from moving to different locations, but it would be different. At least they could, I guess, give it a shot at trying to make some of the difference because obviously you have Seattle fans who would love to have a team, and then you've got other cities like Vegas maybe or wherever. Just there's just more lively cities and there's more nightlife and people would want something to do maybe. So yeah, I mean obviously they need to come up with some solution, but it'd be interesting to see some teams try and relocate. I think that'd be pretty cool for the league just in general to have some different locations because as detailed now, I don't think anyone is too excited about Memphis or Indiana even, but obviously they won't relocate. But yeah, I mean this issue with money is obviously a huge one. There's such a disparity between all these bad teams and good teams. I think the main point that I still can't get over is the fact that the Cavs and Spurs lost money. That's just still absurd to me.
Yeah, and just another statistic that I had on that. So, when the Cavs originally had LeBron, they were making a profit, or a profit by net income at least. Then, when they lost LeBron, they started losing a ton of money, and they started getting revenue sharing money. But then, once they got LeBron back, they started making money again, and then they started having to pay back into the system. So, that shows you the discrepancy when you have a good team versus a bad team. And then you had the Thunder and Spurs, who obviously being in Oklahoma City and San Antonio, those are both very small markets, probably in the bottom 10 in the league, and like you would expect that they would receive revenue sharing because of that. Like, okay, you don't have as many fans that can come to your games. You probably don't have as good of a TV contract just because there aren't going to be as many people watching TV in the area. But they've actually paid into the revenue sharing system for 6 consecutive years because
that's the good players exactly.
Yeah, so like there's that, and then there's teams like the Nuggets, who I mentioned earlier, who receive revenue sharing money every year despite being in a top 10 market in the NBA.
Yeah, it's absurd. There definitely needs to be some balancing. I think I mean, I'm not sure if you could do it in such a way where every team receives the same amount of money, but like it should just be that all the bottom teams receive the same amount of money. Like it shouldn't be, or that the best team, like whoever has the most money should be like the giving, because like exactly like what you just said, like Denver shouldn't be receiving because I mean their market is just better.
Yeah. And it is a very difficult issue to solve because, I mean, when you have a, though I really like the salary floor in the NBA, it creates a situation where you will lose money if you don't have enough going into a season. And you'll have situations where, like, you overpay for a player and then, like, you're drumming your fingers or whatever, trying to figure out a way to get some more money before you have to relocate or, like,
Yeah, like Grizzlies, right? Like Mike Conley is owed so much money. I'm not sure how much Marcus Gasol still has. Like they're probably going to be in a huge bind. They have no money at all.
Yeah, like they're the exact example of why relocation doesn't work. They had no money in Vancouver, and they thought by heading to Memphis that they might be in a better financial situation. Nope, they're still doing pretty much the worst in the league. I don't. Maybe the Pistons are doing a little worse now, but that'll probably change once they get a little better. But yeah, like just to be working the TV deal thing, like just I can't even believe that. Like the fact that like one team can have their entire payroll financed 1.5 times over in the Lakers, and literally, like they don't even have to pay out of pocket for their payroll. They're just like, hey, okay, we're gonna use 60% of our TV deal this year to pay for everyone's contracts, and then the rest we can just put in our pockets and make a profit. And then the Grizzlies, like every year, they're like, oh God, how are we gonna pay for Mike Conley? How are we gonna pay for all these players? And obviously, you can't have a baseball situation where they're just like, okay, we're going to slash payroll. We're going to pay for the cheapest amount that we can and not have to worry about paying the players because we just can't pay for it. I believe me, I'm not advocating for that. That drives me crazy as well. But this doesn't work either, where you have some teams that have so much more money and some teams that don't have any money. And I would love to come and talk about right now a solution that I had, but I don't have one. I don't know how to fix this problem. Like, you can't have a situation where everyone makes the same amount of money because then it's unfair to the teams that are good. But if you keep it the way it is right now, it's fair to the teams that are good and unfair to the teams that are bad because the system right now, where the problem is, it hurts the teams at the top a lot, but it doesn't help the teams at the bottom enough. So, like, do you push farther into the system and try and make it even stronger? Well, that's not the right answer because that's just going to screw over the teams at the top more, and ultimately those teams control your profit, your margins the most. But you can't do it at the bottom either because then that's not going to. Then you're just going to have a situation where just going to. I mean, then they're just going to flounder and all declare bankruptcy. And I mean, you can't have a situation where the league contracts. That's a big problem. So yeah, that's not something you want either. But I mean, this is what happens when you run a deficit. Sometimes you just have some people that can't keep up with it, unfortunately, and that's really the problem in the NBA. And I almost wonder if like the league overall, like I don't really understand how this works because you always see like the evaluations for the NBA and how like the NBA brings in like $24 billion every year. Well, I don't see how that works, to be honest, because if you just sum up like the payroll year to year, like the amount of money that you effectively have to spend if you're any NBA team, it's about 110 million, right? So maybe 120 if you add in like stadium leases or whatever. So if you just do 120 times 30 for all the NBA teams, that's 3.6 billion. So where on earth is that other 20 billion going? Like I'm not even kidding. Like, where is that $20 billion?
I have absolutely no idea. I have absolutely no idea.
So I almost wonder if like it needs to be a league funded thing where like for like a couple of years or something, like you can fund like a struggling franchise and just see if it improves the team at all. Because like I don't think anyone has a problem with like a really bad team like the Grizzlies this year receiving money and then they get better. I think people have a problem when a team receives money and then they don't get any better. They just get worse, or they start just accepting the paycheck and they just sit back and like put their feet up and they're like, yeah, keep throwing in those paychecks, boys. And like I think that's when people have a problem with it. So maybe that's how you need to do it. You need to do a system where the league gives out like a lease or something, or like a loan to like these bad teams that says, hey, if you guys do better in the next couple of years, then we'll keep the money flowing. And if you do worse, well, then screw you guys. We don't want you as owners because you clearly can't do any better if you have more money. So I don't know, maybe that's the answer, but even that's a problem because obviously if every team is receiving money, then like they're not all going to be able to improve because unfortunately wins are a zero sum problem in the NBA, just meaning that there's only a finite amount of wins you can get. You can't just have every team win 80 games in a season. That's not possible. There's only so many games you can win. So even that wouldn't work. But I mean, yeah, like it's a very difficult problem to solve, and it's a problem in all sports, really. Like the sport that you hear about at least is the NFL, just because I'm trying to think of why you hear at least in the NFL. I don't know, to be honest. Maybe they just have good owners or something. But yeah, like in every other sport, it's the same problem. Like you always hear about hockey, where you have a bunch of teams that are in the red for like their profits. You hear about it in baseball all the time, and yeah, apparently it's an issue in the NBA. And maybe it's not that much of an issue. I'd love to hear from like an owner or something if like it actually affects things day to day that much, or if you can just ignore the amount of money and say, hey, in the next couple of years we'll make a return on profit, like Leslie Alexander did with the Rockets, making like 15-fold from buying him in the 1980s to selling him like just last year. But yeah, like it's difficult, and it's honestly it's the dark side of sport, and yeah, like money just it kind of corrupts everything, to be honest, and unfortunately corrupts the NBA in terms of just not being able to expect every team to do as well as they can based on their performance, or just based on their ownership, or based on their upper management, based on their coaches or their players, or just anything. Because like ultimately, it's all coming from the top, and when the top doesn't have what it doesn't isn't just cut out for it. Honestly, what is the NBA going to do? It's not going to take the team away from you. I mean, did it with Donald Sterling, but that's when he was super racist or whatever. So I don't know. It's a really tough issue, honestly, and I just wanted to bring some attention to it because I think it's something that's overlooked, especially in the media today, where it seems like there's too much of a pretense to just talk about the NBA. It's the biggest sports franchise, right? Not franchise, the biggest sports property right now, and it's making a ton of money, and it's doing the best of any sport. But frankly, all sports are struggling right now, and that's a sad thing. And I hope the NBA can find a way to fix this problem and figure out where the heck that $20 billion has gone. Because I really want to do some research on that now, because I don't know where they're getting. Like as I said earlier, I think that to a certain extent the ESPN article is wrong in that it's over highlighting the issue, but to another extent, I don't think they're that far off on the 24 billion thing. It's not like the league is actually making 5 billion. Like it's somewhere within that order of magnitude. Even if it's like 15 billion and not 24 billion, then where's that $10 billion going? So like there's I don't know. Like it's a tough issue, and I would love to see it get better because ultimately the best form of sport is one where you can most attribute wins and losses to players, and that's something that I enjoy about the NBA is that this isn't something that has to be talked about often. This isn't something that has to be thought about often, but it is something that has to be recognized to a certain point.
I agree. I mean, I really didn't even know that. I mean, I've been such a big fan of the league, and I really didn't even know that this was that much of an issue. But yeah, for sure. I mean, whatever it is, hopefully Adam Silver at some point in time recognizes issues like this instead of trying to do other stuff like worrying about sports gambling and whatnot.
Well, that could make a lot of money too, actually.
That could, yeah. And hopefully he can figure out a way in order to, maybe curb that. Maybe he has some sort of plan to use that to sort of help this. Hopefully he's. I mean, I'm sure he's aware of it to some extent, but hopefully he has some sort of plan or thing in place. Maybe they can create a long-term plan where they kind of change things year to year. They curb some of it, or they try and I don't know. Hopefully teams can figure out some sort of solution because I mean I don't know enough about it at this point to suggest anything, but whatever it may be, they definitely need to figure something out because I mean it's just a shame for the teams like the Grizzlies. Honestly, I just keep thinking about those poor Grizzlies.
Yeah, and
especially seeing as I actually really liked them when they were competitive a few years ago. So
yeah, I know it highlights it even more, like how impressive it was that they were able to keep it up for so long.
Exactly, I think they had a pretty good playoff run as well. the couple of years they made it.
Oh yeah.
And they went to the conference finals, I believe, one year. If they hadn't faced the Spurs so many times, maybe they would have had some more success.
Yeah, and that was the one year that they faced the Spurs in the first round.
And I think they've gotten they kind of get written off as like this team, like, oh yeah, they're just one of those teams like making the playoffs and losing in the first round or second round. Like that's enough for them. That's all they care. I mean, that's kind of unfortunate because the ultimate goal for every team should be able to win the championship. But when you have teams at such a disadvantage like that, I mean, those like San Antonio is really the only small market team that's capable of winning championships just because of the coaching staff and the style that they've implemented and the relationships they have with the chain of command in their franchise. But I mean, it's super rare that we're going to see that ever again. If you think about it, like the teams that are considered, I guess, small market really don't make it that far. I mean, you had San Antonio, obviously, but other than that, like recently, like I guess OKC made it to the finals, but like I mean, other than that, it's always big names, right? Like you've got Golden State, you've got Cleveland. They're not huge, but they're big because of LeBron. Then you've had obviously Chicago in the past,
and Boston and LA,
and Miami,
and Philadelphia,
and Dallas even is not that small.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, just to give a couple more statistics to close this one out. So, just looking at this other site because I wanted to balance it out with that ESPN one because now, I'll admit I'm a little scared that I'm wrong. Not because this proves anything, but just because like whenever you're giving some extreme statistics, you always have to expect that they're wrong. So it seems like I was just talking out of my butt on the revenue of the NBA. So it looks like it's actually $7 billion for 2017, but even still, like there is a discrepancy there between the amount of money that the teams make versus the amount of money that the NBA makes. It says here that in 2015-16, the average NBA team made $195 million, obviously brought up by the highest paid teams, in that year being the New York Knicks, who made $476 million. And then I actually have an interesting statistic here where this one has the Lakers making $200 million a year from their TV deal, so that'd be even crazier, but I don't know if that's true or not. That seems ridiculous, but yeah, it actually has an interesting statistic that gate receipts, which is just, ticket prices and like how much you make from putting on games as an NBA franchise, apparently those make up about 25.4% of the total revenue of the NBA, and I would assume that would apply to most teams. So yeah, that's actually really weird to think about, that like only 25% of the NBA comes from. Oh, actually, no, that's not weird at all, because that's not taking into account TV rights and stuff. So, okay, fair enough, but yeah, like that's really weird. And okay, maybe the league isn't sitting on like a giant pile of money, but that only makes the issue harder. Then there's not some scapegoat that makes it an easy problem to fix. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. And even if they're, as I said earlier, maybe it's not 14 teams that are in the net negative for net income, but if it's 2 teams, if it's 5 teams, heck, even if it's 3 teams, if it's 1 team, that's still a huge problem. And that means that all the fans of that franchise, they don't have a team that they can look to where they can reasonably say, okay, whenever we play the Lakers, we lost because we didn't get the best players. Who knows, maybe you lost because you don't have so many people in your city. Maybe you lost because you got screwed on some TV deal because you weren't negotiating with Time Warner, you were negotiating with FS1. And it's a terrible situation being a sports fan of a team that is just losing because of factors outside of the team itself. Like for me, with my personal experience, I used to be a big fan of the Washington Redskins. My family's always been a Redskins fan. Well, not really. My dad's a fan of the Giants, but my mom's always a big Redskins fan. She really indoctrinated us as children. The burgundy and gold, and root for the team. But over the past couple years, and this really 2 years ago, I don't follow football anymore. But I just had to give up on them because I realized that a owner like Dan Snyder, he's just the worst owner in the league, and you're hopeless rooting for a team that has a bad owner because you're never gonna be good. Well, you're never gonna win games. You're never gonna win free agency because the owner's always going to be meddling. It's always gonna cause problems, and it just creates a hopeless situation where you just have to say as a fan, I give up on you. I can't put up with any more of this. And then it becomes the worst thing, because then you have a self-perpetuating cycle where as you get a worse owner, you lose money, but that makes the fans not want to pay attention, so you lose even more money. So even if you improve as an owner, you're screwed already because you already abandoned too many fans. So I don't know. It's a big problem in sports, and honestly, it just reminds too much the fact that sports are a business and you have to make money and all and whatnot. And
Yeah.
it really is unfortunate. And I would love to see a system where that's not a concern. And
I mean, can you even imagine how bad Cleveland would be if they had never drafted LeBron? I mean, given how poor their ownership is and all the decisions they've
oh
made.
no, no kidding. That's why I always talk about like Robert Sarver, or who, I keep using him as an example. I think he's been better in recent years, but someone like Rationalizing, where like the Kings suck because he has no clue what he's doing on the basketball court. He's good at other things, but you're a basketball owner. You're not a business owner. Or someone like James Dolan. I was actually just seeing him earlier because I was reading that article about the Knicks and what they were talking about when they said that Kristaps Porzingis could possibly miss 14 months because of an ACL injury that usually takes 9 months to heal, and like it's saying a bunch of random crap so like you can get attention because of it. And that's something James Dolan does. He's always creating problems just for attention. Stuff like hiring Phil Jackson for no freaking reason, just because you think, oh, Phil Jackson, he was a good coach. Let's make him a GM. And like it
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense. And like when, it's just owners are like if you have a bad GM, you can fire the GM. If you have a bad coach, you can fire the coach. You have a bad player, you trade the player, release the player, whatever. If you have a bad owner, you're screwed for like a whole generation. Like there's nothing you can do. I mean, unless he's a racist, unless he's literally bankrupt, interrupting the team, he can do whatever he wants. And like I mean, it's just disheartening, honestly. So like, I recommend anyone listening, if you're a fan of a team that has a bad owner, just get out of it. It's never going to get any better. Maybe it'll get better for 1 year, but then you're just going to be brought down eventually by the owner screwing you over. So I really just recommend getting out of a bad situation with a bad owner because it's a hopeless cause. Even if it's not, you're just always going to be disappointed. So yeah, like you always see the best teams have the best owners. You see the Warriors have the best owner. I'll look at him up. He deserves some credit. But even the Rockets with Leslie Alexander, we're always talking about how he's very hands off and like he lets the team do his thing. Someone like Paul Allen with the Portland Trailblazers, he's always just very hands off and he lets them do whatever he wants. Okay, it looks like Joseph Lacobe and Peter Goober. Well,
Joe Lacob, yeah.
Wow, I really screwed that up then. But yeah.
No, you just said Joseph Lacob. It's just Joe Lacob. Yeah.
No, I think it's Lacobe. But yeah, let's go for that. Yeah, seriously, like it's so important to have a good owner, and like honestly, it's a roll of the dice thing, so that sucks. But especially because it almost like brings up the issue from history of like monarchies versus democracies, with like just how it becomes almost just a familial thing where like you get an owner who's really good at his job and then his son sucks because he was just brought up under a system where he never had to work for anything. And like you see that all the time. You see, I'm trying to think of an example in sports. I could tell you 100 examples from world history, but yeah, I got nothing. But I'm sure you could think of something if you really, if you're a fan of a bad team, especially. I think James Dolan might have been an example of that, but I don't really remember, to be honest. It would make sense because the Knicks were good, and now they're not. But who knows? So yeah, that's about all I have to say on revenue sharing, to be honest. And yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll come back to this sometime if we ever think of any decent solutions to it. But as I said earlier, I just wanted to highlight this issue because I think the media is really big right now on just portraying the NBA as some cash cow and like it's making all the money, and it is making the most money of all the sports right now, and it is in the best position. But that doesn't mean it's free of criticism.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the issue of revenue sharing. All right. So some other stuff that I have then. So I have expansion teams, which we can talk about, and then I have NBA free agency 2018. So you want to do expansion draft?
Sure. We've touched on it a little bit, so probably won't take very long.
Yeah. Okay. So the biggest things I wanted to talk about for the expansion teams is if you think that teams should have to pay an entry fee when they enter the league, especially when entry fees can go as high as like $1 billion or like 1.5 billion.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would. I think because when you look at it from the perspective of like you have all these owners already whose teams are worth that much money, or it would cost, or they would have to sell it for that much money, or whatever it may be. Yeah, I feel like to enter the draft, to have a legitimate team and to be established and to get players and to get an arena and to get obviously involved and literally just I guess just be a part of the league. Like, I mean, that would come at a cost because yeah, I feel like you definitely couldn't just do it without having any sort of basis for it. So but I mean, at the same time, I don't think it would be an issue necessarily because I mean, if there's going to be an expansion team, there's going to be someone out there who's going to have enough money to own the team and whatnot. So I think it would also be best because when you're paying that much money, if you're getting close to a billion, 1.5 billion, all that stuff. If you're getting that high into how much money you're going to spend, then you're going to get the best quality and you're going to be able to you're going to be able to build a better team, than you would be able to if you were to buy a team, versus if you were only able to spend like a little bit of money on the team. So I definitely wouldn't put any sort of limit on how much a team could cost or to enter the expansion draft or to build an expansion team. I think the budget for it should be simply as high as somebody can pay, and if they're able to pay as much, if they're able to pay that much money, like close to $2 billion, then I don't see why you wouldn't do it because you're able to build the best team possible. You're going to be able to hire some excellent people to help you out. Because I mean, honestly, the NBA, like as we just spent a while discussing, is just a business. So the more money you have, the more successful you're getting, the better position you're going to be in to be able to succeed. So yeah, I don't see an issue with being able to spend that much money.
Yeah, and I think that's a good argument that teams that want to buy owners that want to buy teams from another person, they have to pay like $2 billion. And yeah, the reason why you have to pay an expansion fee is so that you're making up for the fact that every other owner loses out on the chunk of the pie or whatever, like the 1/30th that they get of league profits. I guess
Yeah.
that's how it works. As I made it clear earlier, I don't exactly understand the economics of the NBA and how league revenue is divided among the teams and how league revenue is handled by the actual corporation. But I mean, nobody understands how businesses work at their heart. I mean, you can't from the outside. That's just how it goes. But yeah, it seems fair to reimburse teams for losing out on their 30th of the profit. And I think I read somewhere, I don't know where this was, that like an a billion $1 billion expansion fee would pay off for the expansion team after 10 years. So that seems fair, though, like the fact that the expansion team is hampered by the fact that they had to pay that much for the first 10 years, but then for the rest of the time they're winning out on it just because of the league revenue. So yeah, that's good. So yeah, that's how we feel about entry fees, to be honest. But then I'm really curious to see about what you think about the expansion draft and if you think that it works as well as it does. So, do you need me to refresh you on what the rules of the expansion draft are?
Yeah, just I guess briefly. I think I have a general idea because I mean I've done it in like NBA 2K
Yeah.
League a couple
Oh,
times.
yeah. You know what? The listeners don't know. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I forgot you were here. So yeah, basically how this works is every team gets to protect 8 players from their team, and like those players cannot get drafted by any team. And then the expanding team can only draft 1 player from every team, and they can draft anywhere from 12 to 19, 17, or something like that. And that's their new team essentially. And you can trade your expansion picks. You can literally get bribed so that you won't take a given player from a team. I checked. They said you can just give a player money, not a player, a team money, the expanding team, and like they can just do that. And like in a way, you see that happen in like free team trades where you'll see like, okay, the Lakers gave like 3 million, and then this team gave a pick, and the other guy gave Miles Plumlee because he always gets traded. But yeah, those are interesting rules, and obviously with 8 players on every team getting protected, you can see that like if you have any good players, you're not going to lose very many guys. So yeah, and based on that, it seems like this system always results in new teams having awesome benches because you basically take the best players from every bench from like obviously not the best teams, but almost every other team, but having crappy starters. So I actually saw an article on SB Nation. This was an article from a year ago, but I found it, and this was just doing an expansion draft with 2 teams. So yeah, I guess you can just take the best players from each of these teams and merge it into one. If it was one expanding team, in this simulation, it used the Seattle SuperSonics, obviously, but it actually used Virginia Beach, which we've talked about why that wouldn't make much sense as an expansion franchise, but they did it nevertheless. So for the Seattle team, their starters were Tyler Johnson, Wesley Matthews, Iman Shumpert, Kenneth Fareed, and Greg Monroe. So that's pretty freaking bad. And then the Virginia Beach team, its starters were worse. They had George, well, no, not worse, actually, I take that back. Their starters were George Hill, Tim Hardaway Jr., CJ Miles, Taj Gibson, and Robin Lopez. So their benches, just to give this and show that like you do get awesome benches from this. They had Jamal Crawford, Tyson Chandler, Ryan Anderson, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jeremy Lamb, Fabo Cephalosha, Amir Johnson, Frank Mason Jr., sorry, not Jr., the third, whatever, Mario Hazonia, because, he's got to be on the team, and Jake Layman. And then the Virginia Beach team had Lou Williams, Evan Fournier, Trey Lyles, John Henson, Marcus Morris, our favorite, Byrne Forbes, I have no clue who that is, Nick Young.
Byrne Forbes is on the Spurs, tall guy.
Oh, okay. I would have guessed he was a point guard, so yeah, no clue. Ian Clark, Thomas Bryant, never heard of him, and Isaiah Whiteside. Sorry, not Whiteside, Whitehead. So yeah, as you can see there, awesome starts to the benches, even in the back end of the benches, but then just not good starters. Like Taj Gibson, obviously we like CJ Miles is good. Kenneth Fareed.
They're not good by themselves.
But yeah, like that's just it.
See, the interesting thing here is while you were talking, I was thinking about, like, I felt as though this would sort of create an endless cycle of losing almost, because I was under the impression that these teams would just be bad, and like they would just start off and they would just be bad, and then they could get into this culture of losing and all that. But then after thinking about it, I guess it makes sense, because once you have these benches, and then that are comprised of basically bench players, and you have a good bench, then all you really need to do is, you're not going to be very good, so you're going to get a high draft pick in the next year's draft, and then with that, you can just build through draft picks like other teams do. So, I mean, it actually seems like a pretty viable solution. I mean, not solution, but it seems like it seems like a pretty cool idea, actually, because, I mean, with more teams comes more competition, and then obviously if they're able to, enter the draft just like every other team, which they will be able to.
Yeah, they get the first overall pick. I forgot to mention that.
They do what?
They got the first overall pick. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But what if there are multiple expansion teams introduced at the same time?
Ooh, good point. Flip a coin.
Oh yeah, I guess you do like a dice thing or whatever it is. Yeah, you do something like that. But yeah. If they get the first overall pick, then exactly. Then they can just try and build around that, and they'd already have a solid bench, and they can get some veterans to kind of help out. So I mean, I don't know what the last expansion franchise was. Was it the Grizzlies? Were they an expansion franchise?
Hornets in 2004, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So, they picked Jamaica. Oh no, they didn't. 2004.
Yeah, I think because the original team was drafted in 2002, but then they moved to New Orleans. So I think the Bobcats became. I'll check, but I think that's correct.
Because I think in 2004, Dwight Howard was the first pick with Orlando.
Here, let me see. Let's see. Expansion draft NBA. 2004 NBA expansion draft. The expansion draft for the construction of the Charlotte Bobcats was held on June 22nd, 2004. That's weird, because I do agree with you. I thought it was 2002, but I had known that I had read this, so I don't know what the deal was.
I gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that makes sense, because then they got to make Okafor in the NBA draft. I think.
I'll check. Emeka.
Did Emeka Okafor play somewhere else? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, he wasn't drafted by them.
Oh, was he with the Wizards? Who was he with? I cannot.
Here, let's see. Let me cue up basketball reference. Here, let's see how fast I can do this. Emeka, luckily his name isn't hard to spell. Drafted in 2005, actually. So, no, 2004. I take that back.
But who was he drafted by?
Yeah, the Bobcats. Maybe that was just in the normal draft and not the expansion draft.
Yeah. I think they had the second pick in the. I think what happens is I think they get.
Oh, I think they traded actually. I think they traded their original pick.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense because if they're an expansion draft, then they probably traded the first overall pick for the second and got something else. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, because I was just wondering, if they were an expansion draft, then I was wondering why they didn't pick Dwight Howard with the first pick. Because then I realized they didn't have the first pick. So
yeah, I'll see if that's correct.
Yeah. Regardless, I mean, the idea is still pretty cool. I think it could actually be a pretty unique thing because, like when you say you can protect 8 players, like even though that's a lot of the players on a roster, it still leaves a lot of good players open because, when you think about let's say you think about Boston, right? You're going to protect Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, and maybe one more guy. But then, you still have some valuable pieces there. You've got like Semi Ojeleye, you've got, Marcus Morris. I didn't say his name. So, and then when you go around and you do that for every team, obviously you get some players with some unique talents because obviously they're going to, like I said earlier, the Kings have such a surplus of these young players. You never know. You might be able to get Buddy Hield. Yeah, he might be one of the 8 that's not protected on their team, knowing, how bad their owner is and everything. And then obviously the Warriors wouldn't be able to protect all their valuable players. They protect their 5 starters or not their 5 starters. They protect their Hampton 5 lineup. And then they probably protect, Nick Young, Patrick McCaw, and then like Quinn Cook. And then, you've got, Sean Livingston. And then you got, you definitely be able to get some valuable pieces who would be able to contribute from a bench standpoint. And then once you're able to build through the draft and get some actual stars, you're already going to have a decent bench. So that's actually, it seems like it's actually not that bad of a formula as long as you have a good owner who knows how to do it properly and drafts the right player and, is able to hire the right, coach and GM and all that stuff. So it really, it kind of goes back to exactly what we were talking about, the revenue sharing and like the whole fan thing. Like it really just comes down to the owner of the expansion franchise because, if they do it properly, there's literally no reason why they can't be successful and be a great team. It'd be cool to see more happen. Maybe get one, maybe get 2, maybe get one in Seattle, and then get one in Vegas or something. Or you have to do some you probably have to change the conferences or something.
From what I've seen, they would just move the Grizzlies into the East.
Yeah, or like New Orleans or Memphis into the East, and then you put those 2 in the West. Whatever.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I finally figured it out. So basically, how it works actually is you don't just get the first overall pick. You get the best odds in the NBA lottery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what happened? What happened was the Magic actually just got the first pick outright, and then actually the Bobcats got the 4th overall pick.
But then they traded up to 2.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that makes sense. All right. So that's pretty much all I have for the expansion draft. Anything that you would change about it?
Not really. I think it's actually a pretty good system. It'd be cool to see it happen, but otherwise, no. I think it's. Again, like I said, I think it really just comes down to the owner and whether or not they do they select the right draft pick and all that stuff. They just got to select the right player, and then they really have a key to success. Because, I think one thing that's not keyed in enough about is just in terms of team success in general, is just how poorly some teams draft. And how bad of an eye they have for talent. Because, the fact that Cleveland whiffed on so many picks, 2012 Deion Waiters, 2013 Anthony Bennett, 2014 Andrew Wiggins, and then you passed up on players like Giannis Antetokounmpo, you passed up on players like Joel Embiid, you passed up on players like 2012 Damian Lillard. It's just absurd because, Kyrie Irving and Damian Lillard could have been an amazing, staggered point guard minute duo in Cleveland. There's just the fact that you have so many missed opportunities to the draft. I feel like one of the main things that all these bad teams need to work on is just going through and, finding better eyes for talent and find out who do the teams that do really well in the draft that like the Spurs who find really great people in the late rounds and find people who fit their system late in the first round, or even the Warriors who found Kevon Looney and, Patrick McCaw and Jordan Bell. They need to find out what those teams are doing to analyze their talent for getting these players because, it's hard for me to believe that all these owners and teams are so stupid to the point where they just pick the guy who averaged the most points per game in college. Shabazz Muhammad played great in the NCAA tournament, but what has he done in the NBA? It's just a shame how poorly they select. And I'm not saying every pick is going to be perfect, but how do you let Devin Booker and slip to 13th? How do you let Donovan Mitchell slip to 13th? How do you let Kyle Kuzma slip to 27th? It's not like those players just automatically get so much better as soon as they touch an NBA court. It's not like they just instantaneously open up all this talent. They're as talented as they were in their last year of college or wherever they played before. It's not like you can get that much better in the summer between when you're drafted and when you start playing. There's only so much that you can work on. So I just think that, expansion teams and just teams in general really just need to figure out how it is to evaluate talent because, the fact that you pick 60 players in an NBA draft and literally only 3 to 5 of them end up making all-star games is ridiculous. There's just so much wasted potential and you just have this giant talent pool that's relatively talentless other than a couple people. And then obviously you'll have some dud drafts the 2016 draft aside from maybe the top 2 or 3 picks. And then you've got the 2000 draft, which obviously had the 1 or 2 all-stars and 1 all-NBA selection from the entire draft. So I just think drafting is kind of the most important thing for young team success and team building. And they need to kind of figure out how they're going to evaluate talent properly without doing this dumb thing of just selecting the best guy. Because I guarantee that Mo Bamba, the guy with I'm not sure if I told you this, but Mo Bamba, the guy who I told you had an 8-foot wingspan, he was officially measured at the NBA draft combine, and his wingspan is 7'10".
Oh, okay. So we were wrong too. Okay.
So it's 7. He has a 7'10" wingspan, and it's the longest wingspan in NBA draft combine history. So no one, I guess, in the NBA has ever had a longer wingspan than him that was measured at the combine. So
no, Gobert had it was the longest before, and he had 7'9".
Yeah, so 7'10" from Mo Bamba, and he's probably going to end up slipping in the draft, and that's going to be stupid because he's clearly has so much defensive potential, similar to how Gobert slipped so much, even though he had a 7'9" wingspan. I guarantee if the Spurs had a first-round pick, they'd probably, or not the Spurs, but a smart team like the Spurs or Warriors, they would pick the guy with the longest wingspan. They'd know he'd be a defensive nightmare. The fact that Mo Bamba is probably going to get passed on just because he doesn't have any flashy attributes or anything, but literally has probably the best body made for the NBA in the entire draft, other than maybe DeAndre Ayton. It's a shame how poorly they evaluate talent. So I think that's one thing that every team needs to work on, and something that expansion teams would definitely want to focus on if they were gonna, if they plan to purchase a spot in the expansion league.
Yeah, and just to reinforce your point about how poorly NBA teams draft, I thought I would go through the Hornets expansion draft and the players they actually took. So just to go through that, they took Lonnie Baxter, J.R. Bremer, Primoz Brezek, Maurice Carter, Pregdog Drobnjak, Dresmond Ferguson, Marcus Fizer, Richie Fram, Brandon Hunter, Jason Capono, Zaza Pachulia, who was promptly traded the day of the draft, Alexander Pavlovich, Jamal Sampson, Tamar Slay, Farron Smith, Jeff Trepanier, Gerald Wallace, who actually remained with the team for a while, and so the only good pick here, Jahidi White, and Lauren Woods. So
I only know 3 of those players. I know Zaza, I know Jason Capono, just because I've heard the name before, and I know Gerald Wallace.
Yeah, so that's how bad it gets, and it's ridiculous that you can draft that poorly, and obviously Zaza got traded immediately, so he wasn't even with the team. But yeah, just looking at they have a cool thing that says career with the franchise right next to it, and in total, the players on that team the only players to last. I'm not gonna say, actually I'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players from that 19-player draft actually lasted past the first year with that franchise.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, imagine an NBA team. We always talk about, the worst NBA teams are the ones where, all their draft picks from, a given year, none of them are on the team within, 2 years or so, or, 4 years or whatever. And it just shows, you didn't develop the talent, or, your team is just, I don't know, it's just a lost draft, honestly.
Yeah. So given the time we have left, I suppose we get into the free agency of this 2018.
Well, I was going to say, do you want to do that, or do you want to go into, I know you wanted to talk about, underrated and overrated Hall of Famers from the years past. Do you think that?
Oh, I think I probably need some more energy to do that one. I'm super passionate about that one. So
okay. Yeah, sure thing.
Another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't mind.
No, no, 100%. I just wanted to make sure you hadn't forgotten about it.
No, of course not. But
Uh,
yeah, I think the 2018 free agency is going to be interesting to talk about, given the news about Kawhi the other day and all that. So we can get into that.
oh, actually, I hadn't heard about the news from Kawhi. I always miss like the weirdest NBA news. It's weird because like I followed the news more than the actual games, but like I just miss random stuff. What happened with Kawhi?
So it's not really news or anything. It's just that the Spurs have made it public, I guess, that they're going to offer him the $219 million supermax extension this offseason. So that's an interesting development because obviously there was some discussion a couple months ago as to whether or not they were going to choose to offer him the extension, but sure enough, they've chosen to do so. So they're going to be offering him that, I guess, on July 1st.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that was their only real option.
Yeah, but basically what I think is interesting about it is now it kind of, I guess, closes the door for any teams that I guess thought that they were going to trade him, maybe because, obviously they've had tension and stuff all year. But I mean, I don't know. You never know. Maybe Kawhi will choose not to re-sign. Maybe he'll choose to turn down the money and just go play in a bigger market and get like a better shoe deal or something. Obviously, all that revenue sharing stuff is probably in his back of his mind, thinking like, "Damn, I'm here and all we do is lose money." So you never know. I think it's interesting with him because I think it's extremely. You're never in a situation, I guess, in the NBA where the second or third best player in the league is on the trade market, maybe depending on whether or not he chooses to sign an extension. So Kawhi is definitely going to be probably after LeBron James, of course, probably the most intriguing part of this offseason, whether or not he stays. Because if he does stay, the Spurs are probably going to want to make some moves in the offseason to maybe acquire some help for him so that he, isn't constantly, having to carry the team on both ends on the court. So I think some interesting offseason additions that the Spurs could possibly make is I think they should consider Kemba Walker, seeing as the Hornets are probably going to be moving away from him. He was on the trade block at the All-Star break, and then he just wasn't traded. So maybe getting Kemba in San Antonio would be pretty good. I think Popovich would love to work with him. He kind of seems a little bit similar to Tony Parker, but a better outside shooter. He's very quick. He's not the best defender, but he's quick and he can get to the rim pretty easily, and he's pretty adept at finishing around the rim. And then also another one that I've heard in the news, which is probably less likely because we've been talking about this guy a little bit, but DeMarcus Cousins maybe. That's just something that I read that if he is let go by New Orleans and chosen not to re-sign, because DeMarcus Cousins actually unfollowed the Pelicans on his social media accounts.
Oh, great.
And he was asked why. He said, because I'm grown. So I guess he feels as though he doesn't really have any loyalty to New Orleans, because he said that he also said, I know my teammates want me back, but it's a business in the front office, obviously. So maybe there's some tension there. So maybe we could see Boogie in San Antonio. That could actually be really cool. I think it'd be really interesting to see how Popovich would take control of his demeanor and everything. But I feel like Popovich could probably get the best out of him. Because Popovich is just that kind of guy.
Yeah, and I mean, he gets the best out of all the players.
Yeah, and then also this was actually kind of disheartening. I'm not sure if you heard about this, but apparently Karl Anthony Towns is unhappy with the Timberwolves. So
I'm actually not too surprised by that.
I'm not too surprised either. Because the Timberwolves, they haven't made the playoffs in so long, and then he got there, and then he played awfully. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I'm a little upset by it because you wouldn't have been upset by it if you played well in the first round. Because if they had played well in the first round and lost to the Rockets in a tough 6 or 7 game series, then he wouldn't be able to complain. But I don't even understand what he necessarily means by being unhappy, because they got Jimmy Butler for him. Maybe he just wants Andrew Wiggins out of there because he feels like he's not a good enough third option. So maybe if the Timberwolves make some move to get rid of Andrew Wiggins, that could be a thing.
Yeah, it might even be the whole Tom Thibodeau being the coach and president of basketball operations. I've been seeing a lot of chatter about how a bunch of owners in the NBA are super unhappy with coaches that have that role, with Stan Van Gundy getting fired, him having that role with the Pistons, and even Budenholzer getting fired because of that. It seems like a lot of the owner.
Doc Rivers a couple of years ago was let go he was changed because he was both the president and the coach, and now he's just the coach. He actually got an extension today. I'm not sure if you saw that.
Yeah, I did see that actually when I was looking through that Kristaps Porzingis thing.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting that Doc Rivers got an extension. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we talked about how we feel about him, but I personally feel like he's had his glory days.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much my feelings as well. I mean, he did a good job this season with having
Yeah.
like all his team injured. Basically, they had the most days lost to injury of any team in the NBA. But even still, like they kind of need better than Doc Rivers. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I guess nobody's gonna hire Becky Hammond, so you can't get much better, I guess.
Yeah, that is a shame. I really hope Becky. That's. I guess we can talk about that since that's going to be a part of the offseason too. I think it's. I think it was a really good move of the Bucks to hire Mike Budenholzer. I think it was actually a really smart decision. I feel like he can do a good job of elevating some of their lesser talent to kind of playing to par, and I feel like he can also help kind of grow their stars because. I mean, people forget that just 3 years ago he won 60 games with the Atlanta Hawks when nobody on their team scored more than 30 points one time that year. They had the highest scoring performance all year from them was 31 points from Paul Millsap. Nobody averaged more than 17 points per game. And, he kind of did a Brad Stevens job on them. And he made Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, Paul Millsap, and Al Horford, all four of them were all-stars. They won 60 games. They made it to the conference finals before obviously getting swept by LeBron. They had a top defense in the league. I think that he can really help out with the Bucks defense, which is, I think, probably one of the reasons they hired him because, Popovich's assistants are obviously always excellent at that. I feel like Mike Budenholzer on the Bucks is going to be fantastic because I think he's really going to be able to unlock that team's defensive potential. He's probably going to turn Giannis into even more of a defensive monster. He's probably going to be able to make Chris Middleton even better, Eric Bledsoe, Malcolm Brogdon, maybe even get something out of Thon Maker. So I think it's a really good move by the Bucks to hire Mike Budenholzer. I think that while he's not going to lead them to a championship anytime soon, I think he's going to make it such that they're no longer that disappointing first-round exit. I think he'll definitely get them to the second round next year.
Yeah, that would be great, obviously, and that has been a big problem with the Bucks for me. I always want to root for them, and then they just lose in the first round. And at this point, you got to blame it on Giannis. But I guess you can always get a better coach, and that'll help somewhat.
I think it will. I think Mike Budenholzer is a good coach to do that because I mean the Hawks really weren't all that before he got there. I mean they were making the playoffs, but they really weren't going anywhere deep. And then he was able to kind of take it somewhere and win 60 games with them because I mean it's not like none of their players had fantastic seasons. And I mean the fact that Kyle Korver was an all-star on his team is just goes to show how good he is at elevating lesser talent. So I think it'll be good for him. I think it'll be good for the team in general. I think it's a necessary change. So that'll be good.
Yeah. So, okay, I guess we should actually get into the free agency now. So, okay, just looking at Spot Track, it looks. I'll just go down the top 5 for every position. So, in terms of unrestricted free agents, because obviously with restricted free agents, you can just, the team that had him before can re-sign him again. So, at the point guard position, you have Chris Paul, obviously, Tony Parker, Isaiah Thomas, Devin Harris, and Rajon Rondo. So that's not great, but you always see that with point guards. Very few of them make it to the open market because, today we value point guards so much. And this is just based on the contract of the team, of the players from the previous season. That's usually a good barometer for their skill, but, sometimes you get weird ones like Isaiah Thomas. Then for a shooting guard, you have J.J. Redick, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Avery Bradley, Vince Carter, and Wayne Ellington, and also Nick Young and Jamal Crawford. Then at a small forward, you have, let's see. There we go, I hit the go button. We have, wow, that is not a lot of players. Only 11. I'm just going to do all of them. That's not a lot of players.
What about LeBron James? Wouldn't he be the number one small forward?
Well, he has a...
you just mean unrestricted, no player option. Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And frankly, I don't think that's out of possibility that LeBron just throws us all a curveball and stays in Cleveland another year. I don't think he should. I don't think that he would.
I feel like it's because I agree with you because I feel like if he does right, then he can just wait a year and weigh his options because 2019 free agency is going to be even more wide open because he'll have an opportunity to see how well the Sixers fare against the Celtics because then he'll be able to be like, well, I mean, even if I go there, we might still lose, rather than jumping on there now and then end up losing to the Celtics anyway, right? Like he might be able to analyze next year like, oh yeah, like if I go there, they can beat the Celtics for sure. Or he can go there and be like, oh, I might not be enough of a difference maker. And then he might, then he can, then Kawhi will be a free agent. If he doesn't sign his extension, Klay Thompson will be a free agent. Kevin Durant will probably have a player option again. there will be some interesting moves next if he waits a year. He'll be able to, I guess, evaluate whether or not maybe he wants to go to the Lakers if they show some signs of development, whatever it may be. But yeah, I feel like he could. Colin Cowherd, this guy, I don't know if you know him, but he's like he runs a show on FS1 as well. He suggested that it's not outside of the realm of possibility that LeBron just retires for a year.
Oh, that'd be weird.
Yeah, it would be super weird, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, just take a year off so people see how poorly the NBA headlines are without you, and then see what happens.
I mean, then we would have a Michael Jordan situation all over again.
Yeah.
Okay. So at small forward, I'll just go for the rest of these, and then I'm gonna have to use the bathroom so I can actually finish this podcast. We have because I don't know, my bladder's gonna explode or something. We got Kevin Durant, Trevor Ariza, James Ennis, Jeff Green, and Richard Jefferson. And also notable is Kevon Looney for the Warriors. I could see him turning into like a Dwayne Dedman for after he left the Spurs and not being very good anymore. I mean, he's okay on the Hawks, but nothing special. Then for power forward, we have Derek Favors, Amir Johnson, Channing Frye, Ed Davis, and Tariq Black. Also, Mr. I draw charges, Anthony Tolliver. And then, because he has like the best charge rate in the NBA.
Yeah.
And then at center, we have Brook Lopez, DeMarcus Cousins, Greg Monroe, Jahlil Okafor, and Aaron Baines, and Alex Len. So center's kind of the best position for the NBA right now in terms of free agents.
Can you say that again? It's DeMarcus Cousins and who else?
Brook Lopez, Greg Monroe, Jahlil Okafor, Aaron Baines, and Alex Len.
What about DeAndre Jordan? Is he not a free agent?
Oh, sorry, did I not say DeMarcus Cousins? Oh, sorry, DeAndre Jordan. I don't think he is.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's next year then. All right, then. Yeah, so, I mean, I think it's a pretty good – it's a relatively decent free agent class. It's not what it was, I guess, 2 years ago or the year before. But I mean, overall, I don't think there's going to be that much of a shift in balance this offseason other than where LeBron decides to go, because I'm pretty sure Kevin Durant is going to re-sign unless he throws a whole curveball on us if they lose to Houston and then he ends up going somewhere else. That would be pretty awful. But actually, it really wouldn't be that awful because wherever he goes wouldn't be as overpowered as Golden State unless, of course, he went to Houston. That would fucking be awful. But I think LeBron's decision is kind of the heaviest one this offseason. Other than that, I feel like everything else will kind of navigate around that because Chris Paul, I feel at this point there's nowhere better for him to go. I feel like if him going somewhere wouldn't, I feel like there's just nowhere for him to go. I feel like Houston is the only place that he can be. Because he's not at that point in his career where he can be a carrier, where he can be the best player on a team and, will them to win playoff rounds and stuff. He kind of does need someone to be the better player on his team. So, he's more fit for a second option role right now. And, unless, of course, he decided that he wanted to be a Spur and have a great coach and play with Kawhi Leonard, that could work out. But that's honestly only the other reasonable place that I could see him going. But at the same time, Chris Paul's play style in terms of how he dribbles and how he handles the ball doesn't really fit with Popovich's free-flowing passing offense. So that could be an adjustment. But at the same time, I think it could be great. Obviously, in my dream world, Chris Paul and LeBron James would both go to San Antonio, and then you'd have Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, and LaMarcus Aldridge, which would be a pretty formidable big four that could definitely challenge Golden State. So that would be my dream for this offseason and the free agency. But that's probably a little bit unrealistic, seeing as Chris Paul will probably stay in Houston. And LeBron's decision is probably going to come down to, in my opinion, Houston or Philadelphia or Cleveland, honestly. You never know. I feel like Cleveland has sort of been an out. It sort of hasn't been discussed as much as it should be because, maybe he really just doesn't want to leave again. So, you never know. And as also for LeBron, it's just that, I think we've talked about it time and time again, how he's never been in a situation where he really has a great coach or anything like that. So him going to San Antonio would obviously be the best situation. Not the best situation necessarily, but I think basketball-wise it would for sure be the best fit because he's just never played with a great coach, and that's just something that he deserves to have, at least once in his career. And I feel like, it might be something that he looks back on his career and regrets maybe, like,
Yeah.
oh, I never got to play with a great coach, or I never got to, I played with Eric Spoelstra as the best coach I ever had when I could have had Greg Popovich. So I feel like it's an opportunity you should capitalize on, at least explore the option of going to San Antonio, because if he goes to Philadelphia, you're getting Brett Brown, who's okay, whatever. You both don't like Brett Brown, but
Yeah.
then if he goes to Houston, it's Mike D'Antoni, and his system is his system. It's really not coaching. It's kind of just a system that you're playing. So
No, definitely. And yeah, it'd be nice to have LeBron have a better coach. And yeah, it's going to be interesting for your agency. And I think LeBron is really going to tell us whether it's going to be a really crazy free agency before ever he goes. And I would love to see a situation. Well, no, I wouldn't. I was going to say I would love a situation where like LeBron took until like August to make his decision. But that'd be horrible. It would just take.
it would be horrible, but that's what he's done in the past.
Yeah, he does take his time. Hmm. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Have we ever talked about the NBA moratorium and if that should be a thing?
We have not. I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, for anyone that's not aware, the NBA moratorium is a system where before the NBA free agency officially starts, teams can have like a 48-hour window to negotiate with players and try and figure out who they're going to be signing, and it just makes it so free agency can start. Not earlier, but like once free agency starts, like the action really starts. It's not like some big lull where everyone's trying to contact other players, but I've never really been a fan of this system because I don't see a problem with a situation where like all teams are like negotiating with players during the start of free agency, and like you might have a situation where like a player jumps on a team without hearing a deal from another team just because, well, it's the beginning of free agency and you don't want to see your value diminish. But it's definitely better than what it was when you had a 4 or 5 day moratorium, and you had a situation where DeAndre Jordan famously reject.
Yeah, Clippers thing.
Yeah, rejected the Mavericks offer. Apparently, they had like some handshake deal or something, and then Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, they basically stormed his house and didn't leave until not Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan said he would stay with the Clippers. Obviously, it didn't make much of a difference in terms of the Big Three's longevity, but even still.
Yeah, I mean, I think the moratorium. I feel like I feel like it's the off season, so I feel like people really shouldn't have that much of a problem with waiting a little bit longer. It's going to be relatively boring to kind of just sit on your phone and wait to hear decisions anyway, because there's no actual basketball going on. Because I remember the morning I woke up and found out Kevin Durant joined the Warriors, and I was like, oh my god, like. So it really wouldn't change anything when you find out the news. It probably would have been even more shocking if he had taken more time and then ended up signing with the Warriors. So. You never know. Actually, that's not necessarily because who knows? Maybe if it, I feel like it could definitely impact decisions, because I feel like sometimes, I'm not going to say that any guy makes a decision impulsively, but if you really think about it, like free agency starts on July 1st, and then Kevin Durant signed with the Warriors on July 4th. I feel like he probably would have given some more thought to the decision if he had waited 2 weeks or something. So I feel like it could probably allow for more insightful decisions, and allow for less rash decision making, and we probably see a little bit of different results in NBA history if we had longer periods or had not had that period at all. So yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. I don't really think it's something that needs to be necessarily changed, though. I feel like it hasn't created that much of an issue recently. Because the only really free agent move that people have really cared about in the past 10 years have been Kevin Durant and LeBron's. There really haven't been any other significant ones.
Yeah.
That have ended up mattering, because like there were some that seemed like it at the time, but ended up not mattering. Like there was Dwight to the Lakers, Dwight to the Rockets. There was I can't remember if Steve Nash was traded to the Lakers or if he signed there, but Steve Nash to the Lakers. Harden being traded, but a lot of them is trades too, because and those don't even have anything to do with nothing, free agency itself. So I don't think that it needs that much of a change immediately, at least.
Yeah, and it seems like the NBA has a pretty high rate of its greatest talent sticking around on teams. Like it just the best players either don't get traded that often, or if they do, they weren't like the top 25 or whatever. or like they don't move around in free agency that much because they know that they can get bird rights or they get not work. I think that's how bird rights works. That like it only applies to the team that you started with, or like they just like they don't. And they're not going to get much gain from uprooting their life and moving on to another team. And unless they have like a huge problem with a teammate or something like Kevin Durant, that there's just not much of a reason to move on. And yeah, like it just seems like it doesn't happen that often, which makes it all the more exciting when players like Kevin Durant and LeBron James move around in their careers. So that's definitely interesting. Coming from baseball, like you see the great players moving around all the time. So that's definitely something. And even in the NFL, like you have a ton of players moving around. So yeah, the NBA is kind of unique in that sense, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because you get a lot of like so-called franchise players. But yeah, okay. So what aside from LeBron James, because I think we're both really excited for that free agent decision, are there any other free agents you're going to be keeping an eye on now? Like you're super curious to see how it goes. Oh, and DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh yeah, JJ Redick for a one, because I feel like if he, depending on the decision he makes, if he stays in Philadelphia and then LeBron James comes there, then that's obviously going to be amazing because JJ Redick is just going to be like his Kyle Korver right now. Um, but also I hope, and then who else? Kevin Durant. I mean, if he declines his player option, obviously it's something to watch just because of who he is. But I mean, that's probably not going to be too exciting because he's probably going to end up there. In terms of other free agents, the main ones are obviously LeBron, DeMarcus Cousins, because mostly all the players who are important are locked up. There's Steph is locked up, Harden's locked up, Westbrook's locked up, AD is locked up, Embiid's locked up, Simmons, Kyrie, Hayward, DeRozan, Lowry. None of those guys are going to be free agents. So, this is really going to be the summer of LeBron, whether or not he changes the NBA. I do, however, I've been kind of going back and forth with this, given how Houston's been challenging Golden State and Philadelphia's youth and stuff. And I don't know. I'm kind of at a toss-up at this point about whether it would be more beneficial for him to go to Houston or Golden State or Philadelphia, because I feel like with Philadelphia, they have more potential to be dynastic in terms of they could probably win, more over an elongated period of time, whereas Houston could probably immediately win one next year and then maybe, one in the next 2 or 3 years after that, because I think Chris Paul's age is probably going to get to catch up with him because he already has so much injury history. And, James Harden's, he's going to fade probably in about 5 years or so. This is his peak right now. So, and also I don't think Houston, I feel like the interesting thing I think is I feel like when you're a dynastic team or whatever, I feel like at least one of your main core players has to be an elite defender, regardless of the position. And I feel like between Chris Paul, James Harden, and LeBron James, with the latter two's increasing age, I don't think that they wouldn't have any defensive stalwart. They would kind of have to surround themselves with supporting defensive players, which I feel like can be an issue because, when other offensive players are targeting your best players, you kind of need them to be good defenders. And, Chris Paul would probably fade in the coming years. Harden's already not great, and LeBron would probably begin to decline defensively as he gets older. Whereas if you go to Philadelphia, you have younger youth and Simmons and Embiid who are going to be able to defend people shorter than them and of all sizes because they're pretty versatile. So yeah, I mean, obviously, as you can tell by what I just said, I'm most excited about LeBron's, but his is really what I'm focusing on. I'm not really paying attention too much to anyone else. And Boogie, I mean, if he ends up making a bad decision, then I mean that's just going to be stupid. But if he ends up making a great one, it could change a couple things. I just don't think DeMarcus Cousins per se is. I feel like he's kind of he's a player who can go to a team that's kind of one step away and take them to the next level. But I don't think he's going to turn a team that's pretty good into a championship contender. So, like, for example, if he was to Portland, right? Like, I don't think that Portland is going to become a title contender. I just think that they're going to be more of a threat to finally break through to the conference finals. I don't think that they're going to, or maybe just finally have a competitive, tough second round series given how Houston and Golden State are. And then obviously there's Paul George. His whole situation is going to be interesting. Because he's Paul George and people have been talking about him basically all year. But it basically comes down to, is he actually going to go to Los Angeles and is all of it true? Or is this just kind of been something that the media has built up for so long that everyone thinks he's going to go to, LA and then he just ends up not going somewhere? Because I looked at his free agency list that I saw somewhere and apparently he's even considering going back to the Pacers.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, that would be really weird given that Oladipo's probably better than Paul George a little bit, in my opinion. Just side note, real quick. Oladipo really impressed me this year. I legitimately think Victor Oladipo is better than DeMar DeRozan. That's just my opinion. I think he's probably the third or fourth best shooting guard in the league. I've got Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, James Harden, not in any specific order, and then you've probably got to put Oladipo up there because, in my opinion, he's better than DeMar DeRozan and probably a little bit better than Paul George. So, and he sometimes he's considered a small forward, whatever it may be, but yeah. Free agency is going to be interesting, mainly for LeBron. Other than that, it's kind of going to come down to, Boogie will probably make his decision in the first week, and then, you'll have the rest of the guys, and then you'll maybe have JJ Redick decide and all that stuff. But LeBron's will probably follow up all of it. He'll probably release something on the cover of a magazine in August and be like, this is what's happening, and then he'll get a lot of criticism for it, and then it'll end up being a great decision because his free agency decisions usually work out.
But yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation. It's hard to really get excited about not the lower cost players, but just like, players that are outside of like the top 25 reaching free agency. Obviously, Chris Paul George, LeBron James, those DeMarcus Cousins, their free agency choices are really interesting because they can actually shake up the landscape of the NBA. But someone like I don't know, Rajon Rondo deciding not to remain with the Pelicans, or JJ Redick.
Utah. You can go to Utah.
Yes, go to Utah. That'd be amazing. Or like JJ Redick not sticking with the upstart 76ers. That makes a difference, sure, but like it's not going to make or break any team's chances. I think the NBA is like a real situation where if you get like a superstar player, it can change everything for your franchise, so that's huge.
That is for sure.
Okay, well, that's about all we have for today. So we went through our recaps of the first half of the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals. We talked about revenue sharing. We talked about the NBA lottery. And we just finished talking about NBA free agency that's coming up. Probably won't touch on that again until the actual free agency starts if we're still doing this thing. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed listening to the podcast, make sure to give us a review on iTunes. Give us a like. Don't give us a like on iTunes. Do that on our YouTube channel, Topical, Rationalizing the Monkey Brain. Check out all our other videos. I don't just do NBA stuff. I do stuff with everybody. Personal recommendation, check out the one with Zachary Gacher. That one was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking with him. I think you guys will enjoy that one. Give us a comment on that one if you came here based on a recommendation from an NBA podcast. Be a diverse listener. And yeah, you know what? We're going to see you next time to finish off the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals. See ya.